Hello and welcome to Star Wars Episode 3. But by Episode 3, I mean Episode 3 of the us watching all of them. In Episode 3, we will
Yeah, it
watch
is.
Episode 4. This is the part
And
1.
5.
So,
And 6.
oh my god. Well, it's going to be in installments, that we're all
Yeah,
bundled
this
together.
is the first chapter of this Odyssey. It's Abe's Odyssey.
We don't.
Yeah, because the film's actually pretty good, isn't it?
We've actually seen them, and there's no live audience.
Nice. Alright, so we're starting with Star Wars, Episode 4 A New Hope, or just Star Wars, the motion picture, depends when it came out. But yeah, it's like the first one, it's the OG, 1977, or the 1994, I want to say, special edition.
Yeah, I'm gonna say because we had to have the special edition.
Oh, that's going to be interesting.
And we had the Blu-ray version of the special edition, which came out in 2011 as the final version of Star Wars you can buy.
I had a feeling you guys
this
would watch the Blu-ray version. So
Did you watch the despecialized
yeah,
edition?
we looked online. We found a despecialized version, and it was just like the 35mm like film, just like digitized. Yeah. So there was like no effects over the last however long.
Yeah. Do you both? I know. Do you both own Blu-ray copies? Because that's the only thing that you need to do to watch that.
Yeah, we really
Guys,
should support Star
come
Wars
on.
more. This struggling indie franchise that isn't worth
Legally, to download the despecialized
20.05
editions,
billion.
you have to own it on Blu-ray though. That's like the one rule. After the despecialized version.
I guess the police are going to come for us, Ethan. They're going to catch us selling
I know.
death sticks.
You were watching iPlayer with your laptop plugged in, guys.
You've got those red envelopes. So you've got a license to investigate. James Spooner's gonna be knocking on your door.
Spooner. Right. How we got off topic so quick? Anyway, Star Wars is pretty good,
Yeah.
guys.
There hasn't
is that
really
true?
been much discussion about
In
Star
the
Wars,
podcast.
really. Kind of this uncovered sort of gem, but I guess you could call it a bit of a cult classic.
Yeah.
I mean, it is.
It
is like
you need someone to come up and go, "Look, sir, droids," before you notice this film.
You need to have quite a high IQ to understand it.
Yeah. So this is the thing that started it all. I want to say that the cultural monolith that is Star Wars sprouted from this moment.
No, that's 2001.
2001. I mean, I know influencing robots is a great achievement that sadly Star Wars doesn't have, but I think I'll have to say that Star Wars is probably more accessible to the layman.
Jaws.
Yeah, but there isn't like Jaws Episode 8 coming out now. Like the
Yeah, I
passion
know. It
for
kind of
Star
changed
Wars
the
is
landscape
still
of
alive.
cinema, though. And then 2 years later, Star Wars. It's the first good film. Tokyo Drift, but Tokyo Story. Right. So
Tokyo
if
Drift.
Jaws
Drift,
hadn't
a Star
existed,
Wars story.
yeah. Anyway, if Jaws hadn't existed, Star Wars wouldn't exist. But because Jaws came, Star Wars came, and Star Wars probably is the most influential film of all time. But is it a good film? I'm gonna do my classic thing of going to Tony first because he's watching this
You're
film.
gonna come out with the hot take that Star Wars has actually been bad this whole time. No,
Can't
no.
tell you. I'm
Star
cutting
Wars
to you for that.
is good. Drum roll, please. I know this is such a brave thing. I can't believe someone has actually gone out and said it in this fucking torrential climate. But yeah, it's good, and I think I was definitely apprehensive going in because 1977, that was a long time ago, and I did
A galaxy far, far
yeah.
away.
Yeah, I can sometimes have good opinion. But yeah, with Star Wars, I was a bit worried that, like, oh god, it will show its age, especially since, seeing a few clips here and there of the Darth Vader Obi-Wan fight, which hopefully I'll remember to get into. And so I wanted to go in, none of that, like, decorations on the top to try and hide the age. I wanted to see it fully as it was, and I'm gonna say it holds up. It holds up quite a bit. I'll say that a lot of the reason why I like Star Wars now is just because it's this massive, like, hyper commercialized beast. It just looks so polished just because they can afford to throw so much money at it. And I'm just like, yeah, this looks great. But there's something to be said definitely about what I assume the original trilogy has of this, like, Western gritty, just like you took the entire film and just put it in a tumble dryer with some rocks and just spun it a bit. And that's what the film looks like. It just looks almost washed out, almost rough around the edges, and you'd think that you'd look at it and it's like, oh, it's garbage, but no, it's shitty. It's like a pile of junk, but in a good way. It's like you see the Millennium Falcon, it's like that pile of junk, and you're like, yes, that pile of junk. I've come to the fucking monumental conclusion that is in fact a sci-fi film, and that's all I'll say.
It can be both though. Genre is not like you can be one thing or two things. It can be lots of things. Genre is pretty flexible. It is. Princess Leia gets broken out of prison in a war in the 70s.
I know.
I completely forgot about that scene. That's like one of the few scenes I did not remember from that film.
Why'd you forget it?
Because I just
It's
didn't.
not very
Well,
memorable,
maybe
to
I
be
remembered
fair.
the scene like that. I just didn't remember the big torture ball.
I mean, to be fair, it was more like truth serum-y than like straight up torture-y, to be fair. I mean,
Yeah, I know. I just didn't remember that because like most of like the Star Wars knowledge, like you constantly get reminded of things because it's like it's in a toy or it's in a
Yeah.
game. They've never brought back the torture ball. Like, so
can you imagine if that's what the orb became?
that's the orb in Phantom Menace. Oh my god.
Yeah.
No more mentions of the prequels.
Oh yeah,
Apart from the good
definitely.
one, Rogue One,
Oh,
which builds into this.
there were a lot of moments watching episode 3, fuck's sake, episode 4, where I was like, the entire prequels like just makes this worse so much. Like I've 180'd multiple times on my prequels opinion. I knew they would be bad, so I was like, oh, they're bad. And I watched them and thought they were bad. And then I was like, no, you got to appreciate the audacity of it. But now just watching the original trilogy, they're just back to bad. They just take so many like cool things and just like over-explain them in like a nonsense way. When I think the real strength of Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, is that so much of it is just like off in the distance and vague. Like there's just sort of references to the idea that like there is a princess and she has something to do with this republic and senate. But no, that's not a problem anymore. We've defeated that because we're the evil empire, and that's all it needs to go into because that's all it. Because when it gets into that like in-depth like political discussion, it doesn't do it well. It's better when there's like a lot of mystery to things, a lot of just mystery to like the idea of like a Jedi Knight being this like weird guy who just sits out in the desert. He arrives and he's
Hello
he's
there.
just holding his stick, waving it up and down, and being like, "Oh."
What you don't want to
Yeah, yeah, and I like that it has that like almost sense of wonder about it. That it is just this like fully realized fantasy fantasy world with like all this. All it feels so like it makes so much sense, but it never like goes into like, oh, this is diplomatically elected queen of Utapau, like and it feels such a shame that to talk about it in reference to other things because it has spurred out so much when I think there's a lot to be said about just watching episode three. I'm gonna make that mistake so many times now. Episode one, Star Wars 4. Just watching it on its own because to be fair, like that's all you really need. Like
Yeah.
like I get that like the trilogy probably expands more on like things like Luke's father being someone killed by Darth Vader. I've heard. Wonder what they'll do with that. And that will be resolved in more ways. I've heard the Empire's going to strike back, but just this on its own, just like yeah, they blow up the evil Death Star. It's a film about blowing up the Death Star using the Death Star plans, and that's what happens. Like it's just a well constructed sequence of events.
It's complete.
To
It's like
accomplish
a
a
film
goal.
that stands alone.
Yeah, yeah. So
It's
I
pretty
think
good.
it's good.
But you say about the things that have been inspired by it, and obviously the sequels to it, the prequels that followed it. But you've got to remember that Star Wars is essentially a collection of a lot of very old films that George Lucas likes. That he took like the kind of the serials that he used to watch on like the on TV in the afternoons. Like he took Flash Gordon, and he was like took a lot from a lot kind of like older films, like apparently Seven Samurai and stuff. Don't know, haven't seen it. It's like 3.5 hours long, but that's even longer. But yeah, he Star Wars is essentially his attempts to kind of create a film from his childhood for a modern audience at the time, and it just how successful he was shows in the fact that this film still works today. You could show it to a kid today and they'd still enjoy it and appreciate it.
Yeah, it's definitely stands that test of time better than I thought it would. Because you think, oh God, like you have the memory of the great like fights that have been in like recent Star Wars films, like just the Luke and Kylo Ren, just that incredibly well choreographed, and then you're worried like you see Darth Vader and Obi-Wan, and they're holding their Star Wars sticks like their little pool noodles. They're just waving them back and forth like they're playing Wii Sports Resort, the sword fighting game. And you're worried like, oh no, is this gonna suck? Is this gonna be majorly lame? And it isn't. Like there's a few moments where like, well, choreography could be a bit tighter, but that's just because our standards are so high. But there's actually like a lot of like really good action scenes that just hold up because you're invested in the characters and because they're just like well composed, well put together. It just feels like a good idea put together really well, and it's a good thing. It's good. Yeah, Ethan, come on, say some more words.
No, I've always tried to read this.
Yeah,
I kind of just end up throwing up like fun, exciting.
and those are all good things, Ethan.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard to kind of like, I don't know.
Think about it in depth.
Yeah.
Because I think it is very much like on the surface, like it's just about this ragtag group of heroes doing something really cool, and it is cool.
Exactly. You may disagree with me, but I thought this was a bad thing after, but like not really is. It's kind of like fun. Hey, some baddies.
Yeah.
It's really crazy. Pretty much everything is like or has been,
Yeah.
talked about before. I think I was particularly reminded of this when we saw the scene.
Yeah.
Because for some reason it gets mad.
Oh my god. Yeah, we need to go and criticize a few things. To be fair, but we'll get to that.
There's actually a fantastic scene. I don't know if you guys watched in a robot where
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are we going to talk about the escape pod?
No, I wasn't. That's not the
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great line.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, everything that you see is I don't think anyone could come to this film and see something that's many times.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really is a great film. That's okay. That's important. It's been a while since I've seen the original, so I was slightly worried how I maybe kind of he's absolutely the story that's this immersive that you kind of sometimes forget to go to in the story. That makes sense.
It's the characters as well for me, anyway.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's always.
Yeah.
Fantastic. At times it is a bit, but
You definitely
It's
understand.
weird for me, and anyway, to go back and watch the original because I don't see it that often, and because I'm so accustomed to the kind of like, the dynamics in Empire and Jedi. But when you go back to the original, you have to do like them all meeting, and it's kind of it's odd in a way, and it kind of just shows like what great transformative arcs they have, even though they kind of throughout the trilogy they apart from episode 6 where Han Solo becomes an idiot, they they're all pretty much like the same throughout. And
sorry, yeah, go
no, I've
on.
pretty much finished what I'm saying. Just they're all pretty good.
Being someone who's like a massive Morricone fan, I don't know that William Scofield is probably the best. It's kind of the way that he's
Disagree.
able to create pieces of music that are, really catchy and again instantly recognizable, but they kind of capture the tone of a particular scene so well, like the Imperial March, for instance, or just the opening.
Nope, Ethan, that's
Oh, is that in the Empire?
Empire soundtrack's way
Fair
better.
enough. Yeah. Well, I'll talk about it in Empire as well. But still, I mean, there are many just aspects of the score that are just, I mean, they just capture a particular theme or feeling well, like suspense and tension, or kind of action, or enjoyment and stuff like that. And he really works. And also the opening credits. If you're going to deliver a backstory or exposition in a way where you need to reveal a lot of information, but you don't want it to feel like too overbearing, you do it in the way that Star Wars did because it's fucking awesome.
To be fair though, like I feel like as cool as the Star Wars crawl is, like, does it really tell you anything that you wouldn't have worked out just from watching the film?
Yeah. I think when you go back to the roots of it, in that George Lucas showed the rough cut to his friends, and Brian De Palma ripped into it and then wrote it for him because he's like, you can't just do this. It doesn't make any sense. And the original crawl was like really confusing, and it's so simple that once you've read that text and then you see that opening shot, it's probably the best opening shot in any film ever in terms of just establishing a dynamic. Like, it's incredible special effects. You get like, okay, I'm completely lost in this world already. But
But
I feel like
fair enough.
the opening crawl with that shot, you don't need to explain anything. Then you can just go straight to the action. You don't need to spend loads of time explaining the dynamic between the Rebel Alliance, what the plans hold, who the Empire are. It's all done very quickly, and also it's cool.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, could you imagine Star Wars without that opening?
I know.
Crawl?
It's like it's
It's
almost
needed.
I don't know. You're almost like reviewing the meme that is Star Wars when you watch like a film this because so much things you're not just being shown a weapon that is used by Jedi and it's like more precise than a blaster or whatever. You're being shown a lightsaber, and like you've had lightsabers for like your entire life of being the cool toy thing.
I'm not saying.
Yeah, it's quite hard to review because you have to detach the iconography of everything in the film because everything is so immortalized and so like.
I mean, I'm just going to review the meme though. To be fair,
yeah,
it is
to review the actual film, you have to kind of detach it completely from that, which is it's hard to do.
Yeah, you'd have to be like living in a vacuum for
Yeah,
quite some
exactly.
time to then go through. 'Cause I think
Because
that's
you know,
Like Captain America.
um, what is it? Spider-Man in Civil? Is it in Civil War where he's like, "Hey, have you seen that really old film, The Empire Strikes Back?" Yeah. It really did
Yeah,
surprise
it
no
is.
one that Disney crossed over with Star Wars. Um, but yeah, like going into like the iconicness of everything. Just like when Obi-Wan says like a random line, he like looks at R2 and he's like, "Hello there." It's not just an introduction. It's Obi-Wan saying hello there. You're like, oh my god, he said his thing. And yeah,
it's weird as well, like watching it after the prequels and going, he said the thing from the prequels.
yeah,
So that's what you find with quite a few of these moments,
yeah. And
or I found.
some of it, like, I absolutely like. This is disgusting. When you like think about like the robots, the R2 and C3PO, it's like they were built by his dad when they just coincidentally meet. Like it feels like such.
Head cannon, man. Head cannon. Just it didn't
Just
happen.
ignore
Okay?
it. To be fair, you can just ignore it, but it does like it just reminds you of it in that split second where you're like, oh my god, this is so bad. That when you think about it,
Yeah.
it's like it should be this happenstance, meeting, and it's just like, oh, this feels kind of contrived.
I don't know why.
Doesn't it feel good as
For me
well?
in this film, every time I see it, it's just the part where I think it's because I just really like the actor. The part where Ali Guinness just removes his hood and just smiles over at R2D2. I just love that moment so much. And of course, there's the part where literally everything in this film is just something that people would just know. Every single thing. Do you remember the part as well where R2D2 is showing that hologram?
Yeah. And that was a moment that I really like because they like reference that in 8, and you're like, oh my god, it's the message. It starts the Star Wars universe.
And normally, we'll probably talk about this more when we come to actually reviewing 8. But that's the kind of thing. If you remind me of like a previous film in that sort of like, we're going to evoke an emotion out of you.
Ready Player One.
I won't like it as much as well in 8. I can't help it go. So nice.
Yeah. It's weird seeing the droids coming off the back of the prequels, like, being themselves. Because, like, only in the original trilogy are the droids good. Like, 7 and 8, they're hardly in it, apart from, like, 1 or 2 scenes. Like, the fact that they, like, just killed R2-D2 makes me so sad. And in the prequels, they're, like, weird versions, especially 3PO, like, it's a weird parody of himself. But like in these films, like they're so funny, they're so charming.
Yeah.
They cut to it for a lot of the humor and the heart of the film.
That's
They're
what
really
I
good
was
characters.
surprised by, like knowing the prequels better than the originals, and just like never liking the droids really, and then watching this for like the first time in ages and going, they're actually one of the better things.
Yeah, what this film really needed,
Especially
was
R2.
like a claptrap or something like that. I really definitely love.
Like having R2-D2 is just he's such a great. He's the main character.
Yeah,
in this film.
although
Fine.
there are a few moments like when he's wandering through that canyon, and you're just like, oh, why doesn't he just fly and use his laser powers that he has? and the bit where I think Luke asks C3PO is like, you fought in the Clone Wars? C3PO is like, oh no, we didn't really do that much. This is the flashback of his head being on like a battle droid, of being like.
Tony, it didn't happen.
Okay. Yeah, but
Also,
I'm in denial.
It is like I don't even think it's worth trying to detach yourself from just having the immediate reaction of just thinking like, oh, this Star Wars thing, it reminds me of so many other things just because it's been so prolific throughout its iterations and throughout just being talked about so much.
Yep.
And I want to say my favorite moment in this film is just the bit where Luke just is looking over, like he stands like with one leg up, and the score rises, and he's looking over the
binary
two suns, and like, oh my god, this coolest thing, Star Wars, it's 2 stars.
The binary sunset is amazing. Maybe this score is better than the Empire one. I can't say it.
We'll decide.
I mean, I'm tempted to say that this one is better. Just, I mean, I don't think I know the original.
Empire builds on a lot of it. But Empire's got songs like the Asteroid Field, Yoda's theme, Imperial March. It's got like more iconic. Obviously, this has like the opening theme.
Yeah.
So this kind of like has the most iconic song.
Well, I'm tempted to say
Binary
this was
Sunset
probably better than just
is really
because, you know, like a lot of things, it started it all. It just
Yeah.
had that.
Return of the Jedi is the worst one though. It's got like one good song.
Yeah,
Actually, it's got two. But please don't watch the specialized edition of Return of the Jedi. Oh, they didn't see the Jabba the Hutt scene, Jono.
That's
man,
so true.
Oh my God.
That's so true. We didn't.
You're a
see it.
wonderful human being.
We're so
Oh,
glad
my
we didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't see
Yeah.
You know what else?
four
You know what
Greedos.
else we missed that I couldn't believe we had. Do you remember the part? Well, in the version that I normally watch, so not the original press that we watched to the day. The part where Han Solo is chasing after a couple of stormtroopers, and he ends up in like a whole room of about like 100 of them. You don't
Yeah,
get that in the
that's one of
version
my-
that we watched, which is kind of
Good.
annoying.
Oh, and
To quickly.
you also won't get close the blast doors.
Yes, that's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
Like the special editions are generally like bad, but like there are a few good things. Like the best joke in the original film, episode 4, is a special edition joke where the stormtroopers are chasing after them. And you can hear them shout, "Close the blast doors," and then the blast doors close, and they just added some of them saying, "Open the blast doors." And it's just like that, and the Han Solo running around the corner, instead of being like 5 stormtroopers, there's hundreds. Like just the little changes are great. And then I'd say after they get on the Falcon and leave Tatooine, all the changes are pretty good. But just Tatooine gets fucked over because it just looks like the Phantom Menace. There's so many CGI.
Yeah.
The Jabba scene,
I just wanted to
first.
avoid like all
Oh.
the bad like CGI like aliens that had been overdubbed. Because like it was a bit.
You watch the best version of
Is-
it. The despecialized is the best version, but you have to own a Blu-ray copy. Otherwise, you're breaking the law.
The annoying thing for me, right, was that the first time that I actually saw Chewbacca, and you could kind of clearly see that it was a costume. It was just reminded me of the holiday special a little bit.
Oh no, I think he looks good. Like they don't close up on his face though, which is good.
Yeah, but those aged 2001. You know?
Yeah. Chewie's not really in this film as much.
Yeah, he doesn't get a medal at the end. That's
I know. Fucking.
Yeah.
This is bullshit.
There's a few things that surprised me though. Like I always thought it was like a weird meta knowledge that like, oh yeah, I guess Jedi is like technically a religion when you think about it. But like no, they actually like call it a religion in this. That was like, oh, I guess it is that, you know. Even though that's what it would be referred to as.
It's his sad devotion to that ancient religion.
Kids. Of course, the May the Force
No.
be with you is like that.
What's your favorite scene, everyone?
You know what my favorite line is though? Is when Han Solo he's trying to like imitate a stormtrooper on like the intercom device. He's just like,
That's amazing.
don't come here, we've got a reactor leak. And then he just shoots the fucking microphone. He's like, it's a boring conversation. And I'm just like, that's incredible.
Yeah, that's a great moment because I think Harrison Ford is improvising that whole section because he was. I can't remember. Either he was meant to have some lines for that, or was just meant to be improvising. But I'm pretty sure I've read that he made sure he was making that up on the spot, just so it fitted with the with Han Solo's moment there.
There's really too many scenes
man.
for me to go through in my head. I like so many of them so much.
Yeah, and like I don't know, I don't have like action scene in this as much as I'd like it in like a sort of polished like newer one. But a lot of like the character stuff is just a lot stronger because you know it feels like it's the first time they've done all these things. Like you know when Han Solo is just in the bar and he's just the cool guy with like a gun who just you're introduced like, oh, he's got money on his head, so an assassin comes for him. He just shoots the assassin. Wow, damn son.
I love the scene. I also quite like the scene for one particular moment where a lot of Obi-Wan Kenobi stuff on the Death Star has just been kind of him walking around like trying to avoid people, and the last scene that you see is him like trying to creep around, and there's just Darth Vader at the end of the corridor waiting for him with his lightsaber already open. I love that so much.
Yeah, I really like how he doesn't feel like a super powerful guy in this. Like he just feels like a guy, you know. He's got a few powers, but but most of the time he just, avoids direct confrontation apart from when it's, utmost necessary. Although it is never. What is funny though is that you don't really get an explanation for what the hell is going on when he is just stabbed, disappears, and then it becomes a ghost for the rest of the film. I like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't bring that up.
It's
It's
a
kind
voice in
of
Luke's
cool.
You don't need one,
Yeah,
though, do
yeah.
you?
There's a lot of things you don't need an explanation for, and like you can infer a lot. But there are a few things where it tries to give an explanation. It's just really lame. Like I don't know. When you were at the very start of the film and they just let the escape pod drop by and they're like, oh no, don't do anything about
There are no
that.
life forms in this ship.
Don't give a fuck about that. Don't give a fuck about the escape pod that could be jettisoning the plans that we're looking for. Like I know that the plans are on there, so it's a bit unfair to criticize. But it does feel like they just like ignore it like so easily. Like they got the stormtroopers like got his newspaper up and he just looks at it go out the window. Not my job,
Yeah.
kind of feeling.
You don't do the budgets, Terry. I do. To quote Blue
You said
Harvest.
what's your favourite scene? I think my favourite line of the film, rather than scene, is just Darth Vader saying, "I find your lack of faith disturbing."
Yes, that's my favourite scene.
It's a great scene.
That's... Don't be too proud of this technological terror you've constructed. The power of the Death Star is nothing compared to the power of the Force.
That's good
I just
foreshadowing.
love that scene. It's just great.
You get to
Bill
see
Nighy jokes,
non-CGI
what
Peter
do I do?
Cushing. He looks
Yeah.
good.
I
He looks
know.
good, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Peter Cushing looks pretty good.
To be fair, like it makes me think the Rogue One doesn't look as bad because he kind of has that look to him. Like he's like a
You
bit
if I went
like a
Reddit.
bit etherial,
Yeah.
like a bit,
I know what you mean. And
Yeah.
we'll go back to that. I remember saying that I didn't have a problem with the CGI in Rogue One. I thought it was like not for me. I quite like when maybe the film should have ended after that part and you shouldn't have seen Leia. But I still think the CGI is like good enough for me to not care about it. So
It's more the uncanny valley because the CG is so close to looking perfect, but it isn't. And it actually does look perfect when he's like you see his reflection for the first
Yeah.
time. It's just the fact that they give him so many close-ups.
I also like
for me anyway.
I also
feel
like to
uncanny.
believe the fact that it's never been ever again.
But they're standing on his achievements. So.
I mean, to be fair, that kind of makes sense that he's just kind of forgotten about,
Yeah, no, it does make
because
sense.
he was usurped effectively. Yeah, one of my favorite scenes is it might just have to be the Luke and Leia crossing the bridge where it's out and they use the rope swing.
That's good.
'Cause it's-
Although the stormtroopers miss so many
Yeah.
times, it's unbelievable.
only stormtroopers can be so precise.
It's because they wanted them to escape.
That is true. Like
Easy. You call that
I
easy?
do understand that, but I don't know.
I like the scene in the garbage area where they're close to dying and C-3PO. Last say C-3PO. R2-D2 says in the nick of time, and C-3PO thinks that they're all dying because they're like howling and screaming.
Yeah.
See? It's a funny film.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's great. Holds up.
Yeah, it keeps the energy up, which
Yeah.
is good.
Yeah, we could just be sat here for ages talking about like
We
famous
could
scenes because
go.
there are so many.
Minute by minute.
Wait, can I just do one more?
Star Wars scene.
That's
and
a
talk
very
about
original
it.
idea, Tony.
I'm gonna make it
Yeah,
again.
I was about to say that. The one last scene I'd like to mention is the one where Han and Luke are Han, I guess, are in the Falcon and they're shooting down the TIE fighter.
Oh yes, I forgot about that scene. No, that's another great one.
Yeah, I got one.
Don't get cocky, kid. Yeah.
One of
Just
the-
the
music,
expression
I
of
love-
joy on their faces when they've blown down all those TIE fighters. Also, Luke is a mass murderer.
Now Luke is just a blank sheet of paper, man. He's a fucking
No.
he's a terrible.
No, I think
He gets better.
he does
In
have
In this
a lot
film,
of
he's
like
just A4 paper.
youthful like charm about
Yeah.
him. Like
He's-
you just first see him and he's
Yeah.
playing with his like little toy. He's like, I want to
Yeah.
get off this season.
I mean, he is a bit of a whiny little farmer.
Yeah, his first scene is he wants to go to Toshi Station to pick up some power.
Oh yes, of
Like
course.
compared to like Leia and Han, like he's so like
Yeah.
I think he balances
Piece of
them out,
paper.
though, because he's like He's almost like the one I want to say normal guy, even though he's the Jedi, obviously.
Yeah. Me and Tony
Yeah,
also.
but people hold like.
Gone.
Well, people like shit on Rey and go like, "Oh, she's such a Mary Sue," and like Luke is just like he's like a farmer that ends up saving the world. He has like almost no character growth.
Yeah.
I'm just like if Star Wars was released today. And all
Oh
those
yeah,
people are mad at it.
I would definitely agree that if this film came out today, like as a Star Wars film, not in like an Episode 7 way, like they just kind of do, the same like concept. Like no, if they released a film that was like this and it was just like so many moments, you'd be like, what is going on? Like they just spend like 15 minutes in a garbage compactor, you know.
Empire's even worse in terms of like they spend the whole thing in a swamp with a Muppet.
Yeah, and I think I don't know.
We couldn't help laughing when that Jawa said, "Houdini."
Oh, the Jawas. Classic. There's so many classic. The Gonk droid, mouse
The
droid.
sand people.
There's just every design.
Treadwell.
They're easily startable, but they'll soon be back. Yeah, great enough. Yeah, I feel like the aliens, like other than the Cantina band, they just don't really use them that much, which is good.
Yeah.
And
There are some bad ones though, like the devil.
The what?
You know, in the cantina, there's just a shot of the devil.
Oh
smiling.
yes! Oh fuck yeah! Yeah.
That's true. But yeah, I really like the weird short guys. You don't really see them. Man, herself, and that's like really strongly.
How would you guys say old Harrison Ford compares to you, younger Harrison Ford? Which do you prefer?
Well, Alden Elkenreich or Harrison.
No, I mean Harrison Ford in the prequels or Harrison Ford in the originals. Sorry, Harrison Ford in the new ones or Harrison Ford in the originals.
I mean, he's a different character because Han Solo has become. He goes from being like brash and cocky in this one to being slightly less cocky
that's
and,
my
like,
point
more
exactly.
charming.
They're different.
Yeah.
So which
And
do you
then in-
prefer?
I don't know. I mean, my favorite version of all the characters is the Empire version, obviously, because it's the best film. But like, I don't know. Harrison Ford's a pretty good actor, apart from in Hollywood Homicide. He screamed at that girl and he stole her bike.
I like in 7 that it almost feels like his past is catching up to him. But in this, like, he still feels like, he's just out there causing trouble, being a little...
I'm not too keen on his outfit in this one.
I like the outfit.
I don't know. I prefer the blue jacket to this.
The
Blue jacket's
is
way
nice.
better. Yeah, he looks better in the blue jacket than the kind of leather one.
He still has those little dice on his on the Millennial Falcon in the cockpit.
little dice. Wow.
I thought that was a really nice touch. I like that that's a through line of all the films, including City of God.
We're all waiting for the Star Wars City of God crossover.
Oh
No, I'm
yeah.
surprised.
Could you imagine if there's a scene in City of God where he just has those dice like around his neck? Little DJ.
Okay, so in terms of like if this was released today, what things don't hold up? Like you can't do the special effects because like there's so many different versions. It's hard to keep on track. But like
I do feel like
the fact that there's like 3 female characters in the whole thing,
that's fair enough.
maybe
Yeah.
Like,
everyone's white.
look, there's a lot of things I don't like about Reservoir Dogs. The fact that the cast is entirely white men is not one of them. It's a bad film or a good film, regardless of that. I feel, but I don't know. I feel like the action, it is like really tense and like you're feeling for the characters. It could be just be like a lot tighter. I feel.
That's true. I guess the confrontation between Darth and Obi-Wan in that scene is a bit. Well, I mean, we've seen what Darth Vader can do in previous films. I know Obi-Wan's an old
There are
man,
good
but
moments, to be fair. Like there's a good like I don't know.
yeah.
Like a spin that like cuts the wall.
Exactly. I like the fact that there are moments. It's not just them like constantly fighting. There are moments where they're kind of like almost staring each other down in between actually dancing on one another. And those moments are good.
And
It's definitely the worst of the 3. most
Motion
fights in the original trilogy by a mile.
Yeah, there were strength of Rebels because it has to have a fight of Ben Kenobi against Darth Maul. That's like one of the things. It has to have an Obi-Wan that kind of bridges the gap between all the flips in the prequels and the like very short and like simple motions in the originals, and that fight does a very good job of sort of implying that Obi-Wan's fighting style changes from being the kind of flashy thing to he just waits for the moment to go in for the attack, or in this case does a whole load of like neat blocking or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's me doing my usual bringing up other things.
Jono, disassociate the other things. What do you think of this film as a not standalone, but as a part of the Star Wars, the opening film and the Star Wars canon? If you were watching it,
it's kind of difficult because it felt kind of empty for me, just because I sort of know everything that happened so well. There's no real moment of tension. There's no real moment of celebration. There was never really a journey for me watching this film, which is what is sort of making it a difficult thing necessarily. Because I like the design of it. The design is great, and it has been well put together, thanks to being saved in the edit and all of that stuff.
Oh, that video is so good.
Yeah.
Should we just say to now, you guys and whoever's listening, hello Barnaby. You guys, a must-watch is how Star Wars was saved in the edit 15-minute video, which explains how the rough cut of the film was kind of a bit shit, and how the 3 editors kind of almost salvaged the film. And it's a really great video. And also I like the fact that at the end they tell you who won the Oscar, and it was like it was everyone but George Lucas, pretty much. It was like the production team, the costumes, the music, the sound design, the editing. Poor George didn't get directed.
I think he does deserve some credit though. Like, we do roast him a lot because he went mad with power, but like he originated
he's
this.
not a great director. Like, this film is it's very well edited. Everything about it is great. The direction is fine. And I think you see in the next one when they hire a proper director, it's like, oh shit. And also in the next one, George shows his strength at producing and how brilliant he is as a producer. He's probably one of the best producers around. And it's a shame he doesn't produce anymore. Lucasfilm kind of just don't exist. Although he did produce Red Tails, so maybe it's a good thing.
But, another thing to watch would be Troopers, or it might just be Troops, the fan video that just perfectly fills in the gaps about what's going on Tatooine.
Yeah. It explains a lot of. It's like the Rogue One, the original version of Rogue One. It fills in the plot hole of what happened to the Lars family, I guess. Aunt Beru.
Oh, man.
What a character.
Yeah.
I don't know. Reviewing.
Hang on. Sorry. No, sorry. I was just going to go back to. So Johnny, were you like? So you weren't. How to phrase this? Because I'm still not 100% sure what you thought of it yet. You said you already knew so much about it. There was little tension or celebration and stuff like that.
Yeah. So it just sort of felt like it was lacking something to me all the way throughout. It just sort of never really engaged me necessarily or anything like that, which is harsh. It was not really my worry when I was like coming up to watch it again. I was worried that sort of similar to you and Tony, that it just wouldn't necessarily stand up, especially with being an older sci-fi thing, and yet that was one of its strengths. In terms of one of the weaknesses for me was not necessarily the plot as such, but just that it never seemed to be any kind of emotion there for me.
I do get that Star Wars, you could see it as a bit overdone at this point. Like, I don't know, almost as if like there's been so much of it that if you haven't like gotten in, like going back, you'd almost have like missed the boat on it in a way, just because it's so big. Like, where would you even start? Because there's 100 different ways to start. Or
the film is so like I find it like, of course it's hard to be invested in terms of plotting if you know everything that's going to happen. It's hard to feel tension, but in terms of feeling like empathy for the characters and feeling like, because this film is in terms of emotion, it's very emotional. It's very emotionally led. Star Wars always is. Maybe I'm talking about the other 2 films in this trilogy, But especially with this, it's very character led. There's the moments of like triumph with the characters. The fact that like so many people, like a lot of the success of Star Wars was the fact that a lot of people went to see this film 10, 15, 20 times in the theaters, because it's just the moments of celebration, the cheers every time Luke would destroy the Death Star. It's kind of it's that kind of thing, which I guess is harder to experience now, but I think enough of that kind of
it does
emotional
really
enjoyment
sell.
comes through to me anyway.
Like that idea of just invested
In these like perfect almost archetypes of the characters, like Leia being that damsel in distress, and I don't know, people could complain about that now, but like she really like you.
Yeah, but she kind of
Yeah, I
isn't,
know,
though.
but like
She kind of,
earlier
like,
on,
it's nice to
when
play on
she's
that.
like in danger, and you feel like, oh my god, the Empire was like, we shoot Alderaan or we shoot the Rebel base, and she in that moment you're like, holy shit, she sold out the Rebel base, and they just blow up Alderaan anyway. In that moment you're like, man, the Empire, the bad guys, you want to see them blown up. You don't care if there are 1,000 Janissaries on that Death Star. You want it gone.
Yeah, I guess it's possibly one of.
And with everyone else, Death Stars was got like a sustainable plan for
I mean,
building
to be
Star
fair,
Stations.
like every time they do it, I don't know about the next Death Star, but every time they do it, it's granted them like a solid like decade or so of being in the lead. Because that's how they get into power in 7, right?
Yeah,
It's because they just do it
I
again.
suppose so.
Like,
but
look, they're gonna
then
keep
they didn't
blowing
really
it
learn
up.
from their mistakes, because it was an even more vulnerable thing.
Yeah,
in,
but it's like
in
every
number
time
6.
they do it, they at least get to use it once, right? I don't know.
Yeah, 6 makes sense though, because the whole idea of 6 is they're still building.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it should have
that
been
is a
better. I
better
mean,
idea,
yes,
to be
if it's
fair.
under construction, that's true, but they
That's
should have done a
like,
better job
Ethan,
keeping it secure.
It's like an FTL.
Ethan, they had a shield generator, okay, and it was fully operational by the time their friends arrived.
Ethan, it's like in FTL how there's 2 flagships. There's one you beat at the end of the game, and there's one you can find on the way there that's like under construction. Like you can beat both of them. Yeah. Anyway, FTL's good. Yeah. Yeah, so much of this is just so strong in the iconography that it is hard to review on its own. But I don't like, again, like, it is a film that has all those iconic things in it. So it's not like, oh, you should be harsh on it, It's not like Batman would be bad if it didn't have Batman in it. It has Batman, so it is good. And like just looking at this poster that Ethan has of just, Luke with that blaster and the lightsaber at his hilt, wearing those cool farmer robes, you're like, man, this is Star Wars.
Just for the record, we are doing this podcast with my Star Wars poster literally staring right in front of us.
Looking at it,
Yeah.
looking at Darth Vader with that faceless mask. You can see why these specific like ideas, they may just seem like generic sci-fi things of just a spaceship or a laser sword. But you can see why this specific incarnation of them is the one that has, stood the test of time and is.
They hadn't really been put to screen that way though.
It's like
Like
the one that like influenced all
Make-
the other ones.
making a big budget science fiction film for children, like in the 70s, was quite a bold thing to do. Like, especially as like I think Lucas's thing. You're not gonna like this. He was like, I want to do what 2001 did, but like for kids. He almost wanted to make a film that looked like 2001, that looked real, but wasn't like some high.
That is pretty genius.
And like
just
evolution,
taking the
but
good
just
part of
about
2001 and then making a good film out of it.
Yeah.
And this also is
And it
like,
worked.
old films. I have the fear that they'd be paced really slowly, and this definitely isn't. It never lingers too much on anything. Like again, it's edited really well.
Yeah.
Definitely. You gotta watch this editing video, man. It's great. But for me, anyway, like if I was to do some criticisms, I've never really liked the last act with the blowing up the Death Star. Just I don't know why, but like personally, I just don't find the space stuff as interesting as the kind of the escape from the Death Star or the kind of just the Tatooine scenes. I don't know about you guys, because it's a great moment when he blows it up, but there's almost too much of like it's a bit too hard to follow.
Yeah,
at times.
I see that.
And,
Like it does just feel like it's hard to keep track of everything in space. Like I don't think you're meant to, but it does just feel like a lot of like, oh, they're behind me now, and like it feels like they have like an infinite supply of gold leaders to on trench runs, and until like
This
they
is
all
Red
die, and
Leader
it's just up to
returning
Luke
back.
to do it. You know.
I think it especially gets a bit more difficult for me to follow when they're in the trenches and you don't know where the ships are within the trench. So it's difficult to know who's got who's back and who Darth Vader is following, and yeah.
But it is still really cool.
Also, Darth Vader in the ship is dumb because they didn't know what to do with
Yeah,
Darth
it does
Vader.
look a bit.
He was just like he was just some weird enforcer, and then the next one he becomes like a cinematic
but I guess
icon.
they had to figure out a way for him to survive for the next one, didn't they? So it's like, why not put him in a ship
They
where he
could have
gets like
just done
ricocheted?
the Sergeant Johnson in Halo thing. Though. How did you survive the Halo ring blowing up? Classified.
Is that actually a thing?
That's
Should we-
literally
should
how
we-
Halo
can we
2
move
starts.
on so we-
Oh, that's really good.
Can we move on so we can talk about
Yeah.
Empire, please?
Right.
Nice.
Or should we wait?
Yeah, probably.
Oh no, I shouldn't have done that. I don't know what to score it. It is really hard to score.
Yeah, I know what I'm gonna give it.
Yeah,
so
do you
I
want me
can,
to
yeah,
start?
I can start.
Oh, you
Yeah,
go for
it's
it.
it's Star Wars. There's not a lot more I can say. So I'm gonna give it like the highest. This is like City of God levels, 9 of 10 for me. It's a 9 out of 10, but I don't want to give two films in the Star Wars franchise a 10. So I'm saving mine for a better film.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I'm pretty much the same. I give it a 9. I think it's probably closer to an 8 than a 10 though, just because there's personal things about the film that I don't really like. I don't really get on with. For me, the definitive Star Wars film's coming up, but this is a very impressive piece of cinema and still holds up today, even though the special edition changes. Some of them suck. 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I think it's difficult. Yeah, it felt like it was lacking, and you say it's kind of like an emotionally driven film, and yet it just Luke's family dies. He's okay about it. Leia's whole planet
He keeps on
dies.
running a knife.
She's okay about it. Then the local hobo dies, and Luke's a bit sad for a bit, and then the film moves on. I don't know, but yeah, it's difficult, doesn't? I'm gonna go for a 7 out of 10 for like it's iconic. It's got some great shots, some great design, and great music. But yeah,
Wow.
That's that's quite a score for Star Wars.
Yeah.
I already knew that, so I'm not. I'm gonna pretend. To be sure.
No. All I'm gonna say, right, is that you gave City of God a 10. That is all I really care about.
Vindicated, Ethan.
Yep.
I've got a free reign to insult Ethan for the next few months, maybe. Anyway, yeah, sorry,
An
Tony.
immunity. Yeah, this is definitely hard to review, and I feel like there is a lot I like about it because it's film. But there is also the fact that I just do prefer like a slightly more the more polished style of films in newer ones. But at the same time, it's got a lot going for it, and it's almost like for being the first one. Just I feel like I should like give it credit for being the thing that introduced all of the iconic things. Like you see a spaceship and it's like that's an X-wing, oh my god, it's a thing that I know. Star Wars.
That's Snoke's ship.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know.
It feels like a piece of real world history almost. Watching Star Wars feels like an event. Yeah,
Also, just like to say very quickly, it's not a strong enough conceit to hang a franchise off. Like, it's a very good standalone
know.
film, which has good sequels, but this idea of an expanded universe based on this, I don't think it entirely works. And
I
it's
see that.
And its sequels,
but at the
well,
same
it's,
time,
the Disney ones are
you
inherently
get things
flawed
that are
because
like 8 seasons of like people in an apartment in New York. Like
No,
you
I
can
mean-
do a lot with a small
No,
idea.
I'll tell you what, you can get 14 seasons of people in a hospital.
So I think space power struggle of this weird sci-fi religion and all these cool like crazy characters that keep coming in and doing crazy shit. Oh man.
Yeah, but it's such a good standalone story. Like for me anyway, like Star Wars for me is the films, and then it's like I know Johnny's probably the polar opposite to me, that he's everything but the films. But for me, it's the films, and it's these 3 films, and like pick and choose. So like Rogue One's good, 8's really good, 7's alright. So yeah, but it's definitely this film and its sequel.
I think I'll go with a pretty low 9, but definitely a 9. It definitely deserves that just for changing the world in the way it did. Sounds massively wank now. Sounds like I'm a Ready Player One defender.
The thing is, I know I'm not Johnny, but I don't I also like. Hold on, let me say it again. I know I'm not Johnny, but I still don't think I could give anything that has this much, just this much influence on, you know. I say
And it's
modern
not
life,
just
but
because it is influential that you feel like you should like it. Like you watch it and you feel the weight
Yes.
of that, like
Yes,
the way it
exactly.
changed the world.
Exactly,
You know,
yeah.
in the moments where Obi-Wan says hello there, or you see blue milk
I
on
know,
screen,
yeah,
you're like,
yeah.
it's blue milk.
You've got the opening, you've got lightsabers, you got Death Star, you got Chewbacca, just everything in
You've
there.
got
I can't give it
R2.
any less than a 9 because I just feel like it's disrespectful to
Yeah,
everything that it's
disrespectful.
created.
You should, I don't want to say it should be revered in some way, but you know, like I would see like watching it and not enjoying watching it. Like I would understand like having a few problems,
Yeah.
but other than that,
Wait, it's the best one we've
yeah,
done so far, right?
give
I
it
think
a
it's even a.
9.
Yeah.
It actually is for me.
Oh, this
For me,
fucking guy with Solo.
Rogue One is really good.
It's like it's got everything Solo's got, man. It's got Han Solo. It's got a better arc for Han Solo than
I
Solo.
don't know, but Solo just captivated me more.
Oh man,
Yeah, but you'd seen Solo twice. You probably through osmosis consumed this film hundreds of times.
That is true.
yeah. Man, for Solo,
I mean, I'll stick with like just having A New Hope close, but with the footnote that potentially I'd rather watch Solo.
yeah. For me,
Okay.
Rogue One and I don't know, getting the name Episode 4 are a lot closer than I thought they'd be. I think that's because I like Rogue One a lot. But yeah, I think
Yeah, Rogue One's is really good once you've seen this,
yeah.
and if you went
But
back
also
and rewatched
watching them
Rogue
in
One, it's like,
chronological order
holy
is
shit.
really cool. Like forgetting Solo.
The way it builds into it, it's what a prequel should do.
I don't know.
It's what Red Dead 2 is doing at the moment.
For me, yeah, just the strength of the mystery of that world. Before, like, even though like it has been explored in so depth, there's still just such a sense of wonder of being in that in the Star Wars planet and experiencing that mythos and all the unique aesthetic of all the cool shit it's done. It's good. We getting on with episode
Yep.
the next one.
Hello, and welcome to the second part of the third episode of Mediate SW Minute. Yep.
Social
that's-
warrior.
That sounds about right. In this episode, we'll be covering the fifth film in the Star Wars franchise. Well, it's actually not the fifth film. It was the second one released, and it's the fifth in the main saga, and it's called The Empire Strikes Back. And I think it's a piece of shit. I'm going to give it a 1 out of 10. Okay, so I guess I'll give it an introduction. I don't know if it needs much of an introduction.
Yeah, describe what this one's about. It's about the hyperdrive, I think. It's the easiest way to put it.
I won't go into the plot too much, but I'll just say that it was directed by Ivan Kershner, written by Lee Brackett and Lawrence Kasdan, with the story by George Lucas. It was produced by Lucasfilm, the first Star Wars film to be completely independently funded by George Lucas, which is pretty cool. Well, I think it's pretty cool anyway. When you read into the production history, it's got quite an interesting history, which I'm sure I'll touch upon when we talk about the film. Main producer Gary Kurtz, this was his last film as producer because he fell out with George Lucas over this film. And I'd say it's probably the high point of the Star Wars franchise. The only thing that comes close to it in quality since this film was The Last Jedi. Everything else is significantly worse. Yeah, I think it's probably my favourite film of all time. One of the two favourite films I have. I think it's probably remain one for now. I need to see the other film in question a couple more times and then...
What, you mean there's an alien?
Nah, it's this and Wall-E now. Aliens, down to 3. But yeah,
Where's
I know.
Tokyo Story fit on that?
Tokyo Story is the fourth worst film I've ever seen. So, obviously, music by John Williams. John Williams. One editor on this one versus Star Wars' 3 editors. I'm not going to go into the cast because you know who the cast are. The big kind of new addition, obviously, is William D. Williams or Billy D. Williams.
Billy
It's
D.
Mando Calrissian.
Williams.
I love how his name was William D. Williams. That's one of my favorite names of all
Do you
time.
know what the D stands for?
I do not. I used to.
It stands for December. He is his.
There he is.
Yeah.
William December Williams.
Yeah.
What a man. Anyway, I think we've given enough context behind this film.
Mostly
That'll
the
do.
context about Billy D. Williams.
Yeah. Okay. So I've seen this film before.
Dead Redemption.
I think it's alright. Jono, you've seen this film before?
I think I must have, but so long ago, it's kind of like seeing it properly for the first time.
And how was watching it for the first time?
Yeah, it was good. It's got some really good shots in this one, and just such.
They hired a proper director in this one.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, you can tell. Yeah, there's some like really beautiful shots they've got in there. Some really strong design as well, like Darth Vader's weird chair where he puts on his mask. The like shot of Han Solo being put in the cargo hold. Just like the whole of like the last battle, just all the design of that area is great. The sort of the darkness and the Tabana gas.
It's definitely a visually pleasing film, and
Yeah.
it's got a lot of variation in the visual style as well. I'd say, in the fact that the film is essentially split up into 3 acts. Of the first being the everything on Hoth,
Cold.
the second being Dagobah intercut with the Falcon in space, and the third being Bespin. So and all of those places are very different. I mean, you got the whole like, oh, it's the snow planet, and oh, it's the swamp planet, but like that they don't just seem like, it doesn't just seem like a regular swamp. It definitely feels very alien, even though there are like human snakes on there, like real world snakes.
Yeah,
The snakes.
bit where
I think they're like in every shot in Dagobah. It's quite funny.
when
seeing them all.
Luke just takes a snake out of the engine of his X-wing.
Yeah, they did that a few times, and apparently it bit Mark Hamill in one of the takes.
See, I was wondering
Along
about
the-
snakes.
Along the line between the prequels and this film, Yoda must have seriously something just must have snapped inside that head of his. He is slightly deranged in this one.
He's
do wanna
smooth.
Talk about Yoda more.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably move on to Tony, but just quickly, I do love the Yoda's opening where he's playing with Luke. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Oh.
just his insanity is kind of great.
Yeah, it reminds me of like when the Emperor's acting, in the next film, like, but it's for a longer period, obviously. And then there's kind of a moment where you realise that what he's been doing the whole time. Although it's like we'll probably get onto the big twist, but the twist that the green alien is Yoda is it's hard to be
That's a very
tricked
good
by
twist,
these
yeah.
days because
Quite a bit.
obviously he's so iconic and everything about him is iconic. It's a bit annoying because that is set up as a twist, and it's impossible to experience that now unless you have your memory wiped or you've been living under a rock for the whole of your life.
Well, like C-3PO even. You've been built by Anakin. Oh no.
Okay, Tony.
What did you ask? What I thought of the Star Wars?
Yeah, of the SWEVTS. Wait, TESB.
Alright, so the first one was Star Wars. This is officially Star Wars now. Yeah, this one is quite good. And I'll agree so far as what you brought up the director, and I think that does add a lot to it. This one, we watched the Blu-ray version, but definitely it feels composed in a lot more in a way that holds up a lot better than the first one did. It's a bit of an unfair test considering we watched the despecialized edition and the Blu-ray for this one. But yeah, the editing. I say editing. It's got like a lot more of like a modern flair to it. That being said, I don't think if I have a shot that comes close to me compared to like the binary suns in episode 4.
Yeah.
But there are still, like you said, like a lot of good moments. I really like the Darth Vader fight with Luke, like right on that outstretched platform. I think there's a great like overhead shot, and especially the set design for the cryo, what's it called, carbonite?
Yeah.
Carbonite freezing chamber is like one of the best, sets in Star Wars, I feel, and it has a great fight that takes in there, and the action for the lightsaber fights, which there are more of and better of, is nice. That being said, there are a few problems I had with it. I felt that the Hoth action scene wasn't as, I don't know. I kind of like the trench run more, to be honest. And I don't know. I feel like the first one was the first film. I say first film. Episode 4 felt like a more complete adventure when you just think of what was accomplished in terms of it's just literally about blowing up the Death Star. This one doesn't have that, but I think that's the what do you call it? The curse of being a middle trilogy film.
Yeah, but do you feel that way about a film like Infinity War?
Hello?
Do you feel that way about a film like Infinity War, which has a similar kind of cliffhanger ending?
Yeah, I suppose so, but Infinity War, I can at least see it as the film where Thanos does and it's just the lead up and the beginning, middle, end to just that part of the story, whereas this just does feel a bit like the episode 8 thing of just it's them running away for a bit and it ends. Because I don't know, we're going to bring up a different middle trilogy that will contradict this, but I feel like most times they start off with the single version of the film, then it does well, so they're like, alright, we'll make 3 because rule of threes, and so they take the sort of plot of the first one, extrapolate it into like a 3 act structure for 3 films, and so the second one is just sort of the bridging one. It gets shafted, whereas the first one normally feels like a complete story, and the last one has the benefit of wrapping everything up.
Yeah, but I feel like this is a more satisfying ending than the episode 6's ending. I don't know. For me, it feels
fair enough. If episode 6 drops the ball, then that's a bit lame.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It does feel a bit unfair to review this on its own, since I would never. I mean, we did just watch. I would never be like, I'm just gonna watch episode 5 just on its own, because it does rely on the lead up from the ones before it, and then leaves a lot hanging for episode 6. So
But to me, anyway, the film it stands alone. Like you can watch it on its own. Like you have to have some base knowledge of the original. But
there was stuff that I just felt like that there was a lot of stuff like with Han being frozen in carbonite. It did feel a bit Halo 2 to me, and like that is it's an unfair criticism, because it is a middle trilogy film and it will always have to be like that. It would have completely shafted episode 6 for it to not be like that, but at the same time you have to take the reality as it is.
It's an interesting thing that Tony says what he does, because since this one is my favourite of the Star Wars films, it'll be the one that I often watch, and then because you mean by itself, and then because I'm in the Star Wars mood, I'll just why not finish off a trilogy and watch Return of the Jedi? So I've not actually seen A New Hope that many times.
Yeah, I'm similar.
Fair enough.
I'm definitely similar, because I just watched this and The Phantom Menace.
Fair enough. I don't know. I feel like the I'm gonna call it the first one, Star Wars Episode 4, has like a better sense of adventure and mystery to it, and like I sort of like the action in that, and like the things that were accomplished in it. The story beats are kind of like the more, even though this one is still really good. Like I know we're comparing it like on its own. I think it has a lot of the great Star Wars elements to it, and I feel like watching it is good enough to justify its existence. It's not like I hate it so much I would just only ever pretend episode 4 exists. It adds a lot to the Star Wars mythos, which is what I always want from a good installment, as opposed to just sort of riffing on stuff that's already came before. Like it adds in Yoda, and I think it really fleshes out like the feel of the Imperials is so much better in this, just because they have the Imperial March theme song. And I will agree with, I think Harry said last part that the score in this is better, and I'd say so, yeah.
Yeah, because this is, like you say, you keep referring to it as a trilogy, but if you view it as just a sequel, like Discount Jedi, this is a sequel to the next one. And, well, for me anyway, I feel like some of the best and worst films of all time are sequels. And my favourite game is a sequel, because when you can build upon such a core foundation, because Star Wars, like the plot, it's pretty simple. You know, by the end of it, the robots have won. They've defeated the Empire. Where do you go from that? And the question is, you get more complex. You delve into the characters a bit deeper. You go darker. There's the whole joke that like every time a series goes darker, they go, it's the Empire Strikes Back, because that's kind of what it did. And it's almost like it breaks from convention. Whereas Star Wars is a very conventional plot. This is a bit all over the place, and that's kind of why I love it. The fact that you're intercutting between just people trying to survive, they're on the run, versus Luke. You know, his whole thing, the Yoda's a lot more slower paced. And some people obviously make the plot hole that like, oh, but they're on the run for a day and Luke's training for only a day then. But like, I really like the way it cuts between the two. And for me anyway, I feel like it gives the film a lot of forward momentum.
Yeah, and I will say that the Yoda training scene is like one of the things that makes this like almost as good as the first one in my opinion, because I just love Yoda so much. You know, he adds so much to you know that part of the story. Just what would be a normal boring training montage. He's just this crazy old man who just, you know, starts beating R2 with a stick. It's great. I love it.
Yeah. But when he because like obviously when Luke first meets him, I think because that's just an act to kind of trick him, and then when he's in the home, he kind of shifts gears entirely, becomes this kind of like wiser older character who's a lot more serious and stoic, dare I say it. And then there's the I think the I'm going to say this with everything, but the score really elevates this film. Like if this film didn't have the soundtrack, it would probably be a 9. Like it's genuinely like one of the best soundtracks to anything ever. Probably is the best. And like Yoda's theme is so good. Like the moment where he lifts up the X-wing from just the swamp is like genuinely gives me chills every time I see it, just because the music is so powerful. And like even though he's so small, that theme is so, and the way it builds from the Binary Sunset kind of theme, and like reinvented what it gave a kind of musical aura to what the Force was, which I think is great. And the whole like idea of the Force is really expanded upon in this one. Like if you watch the first film, the bit where Luke picks up his lightsaber using the Force, you know, when he's in the cave with the Wampa, that's like in the original Star Wars they didn't have anything like that. Of course, you have the Last Jedi thing of like you can't just invent Force abilities, but this whole film kind of like a lot of what we know about like classic Star Wars comes from this, because the first one is obviously it feels quite bare bones to me anyway, and this really expands and is kind of Star Wars for me.
No, I completely agree with what you guys have to say about about the music, because often for me it's something that can be, you know, overlooked. And for me, if there are particular scenes in films that I really, really like, I'll go back and watch them, and it will primarily be for the music. Like there'll be scenes from, if you take, not from this for example, but if you take scenes from like the spaghetti westerns for instance, there'll be days where I just go back and just watch one of those scenes, and then I'll just watch it again a couple of hours later, and it's because the music kind of lifts everything up. And I don't find myself going back to watch scenes if the music isn't good, if that makes sense. But like here for instance, like the trying to navigate the asteroid field.
I was just about to say that's like the best piece of music.
Exactly, yeah. And I'll go back and watch that, because not only is it like a thrilling action sequence, but the music is also fantastic, and it always makes me really happy to hear music that's so well composed and works with the scene hand in hand, you know?
Yeah, like the asteroid field, like the music, and also I'll do the asteroid field first. Like that music kind of makes the scene.
Yeah.
And also Harrison Ford's acting, but the
But yeah.
I just and the one other piece of music I think really makes it is the Attack on Hoth. That bit of music, the Battle of Hoth, is really good. I really like that music. And while the my only problem with that kind of whole battle is like when you know what stop motion looks like, you can tell it's very clearly stop motion. But like that's fine, because like I'd rather have stop motion than like guns.
The way the what do you call them? Tauntauns run.
Yeah. It's weird. It has a bit of like because I'm not going to say this film's perfect, because nothing's perfect apart from plot 2. But the start of this it almost takes about 15 minutes to get going. Like it's good. Like it's a decent start, but like really when Luke gets back from the Wampa Cave, that's when the film really begins.
Yeah, that's true. But I really like the section where he where you definitely can see it that he's been improving in terms of Jedi perspective, because there's the great part where he's trying to go for his lightsaber, which is stuck in the ice, and that's like a really, really good part because it shows that the Force is starting to flow through him a little bit more, and he's on his part. He's on the way to becoming a Jedi.
Yeah,
you see Alec Guinness.
Able to use Force.
yeah,
it's always nice to see Alec Guinness in
doing
his
his
films as
They're
well.
doing his one day of filming that he got paid about $5 million for.
Oh my god, that's pretty good.
So I think that's the first moment you see that you can move things around with the Force, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So So for us, like, knowing that that's something Jedi do, watching this moment is like, he's more in touch with the Force. Whereas I wonder what it would be like watching it for the first time, going, what's this weird magic he can now properly do?
Well, I mean, you can very clearly see that with the reaction to when they added the new stuff in Episode 8. That's not Star Wars.
And Episode 8 is really good because Episode 8 is essentially doing what this is doing. Like it's kind of shattering boundaries, and it's changing the perception of what it means to have a Star Wars film. And obviously, there's the whole like Force Awakens is just a remake of the original Star Wars, which everyone's heard. Like, come on.
Yeah, but
yeah, I know, Ethan. You don't need to say it. Everyone knows that. Like, okay. And you could make a case that Last Jedi is essentially similar plot to Empire. In that it's the chase, although it's a bit slower than this chase. But that film, which I really love, like does a lot more than Force Awakens does. I don't know why I'm talking about this.
So
Anyway.
imagine if Han and Leia and Chewbacca landed on whatever that place was called.
Canto Bight.
Canto Bight.
Now they land in a giant worm. I really love that.
Those, what are they called? The Mycos? Zygos? Something like that.
I don't know, but for me that's one of the dumbest Han Solo moments, because he shoots it the first time, and he's like, what was that? It felt like it was moving, and that would clearly be that was clearly a dangerous thing to do, and he thinks the best way to check that it actually is alive is just to shoot it again, and that has to rush the
that's a classic
It is a very
Han
good way
Solo.
of showing it to the audience.
It is. It
It's
definitely
like,
is.
There's so much, like, with Han Solo, so much communication without saying a single word. Like, the scene after Leia kisses Luke, and then Luke goes to see Han when he's repairing the Millennium Falcon.
yeah.
Luke does
And
the
he
Kevin
just- he
Spacey.
just- they have like
Yeah,
they
he
say like
does.
hi to each other, but then they just look at each other like back and forth, and like so much is conveyed in like the subtlety of their expressions, and just Luke just walks away, and Han just like death glares him.
Death
It's
officer.
great.
Yeah, a lot of pointing as well from Harrison Ford,
Oh yeah,
Lot of
the Han
pointing.
Solo point.
especially early on.
Yeah, God. I also love the moment when Lando talks about how basically he kind of vaguely sets up that he's going to betray them in an instance just before he's going to open the doors, and Darth Vader's just sat there at the end of the table.
Oh no,
I
that's
like,
such a
I
good
like
moment.
that tiny frame where you see like Darth Vader just at a dinner table.
Oh my god! It just
All
that's just reminded me of another fantastic Robot Chicken sketch where they're just all eating at the table together. It's like a really awkward.
Yeah, that's what I
interaction.
was about to say. Is that I would really like to see that meal, because it looks like they all headed to have a meal.
Yeah.
That's such a good shot though. Like
It is, yeah.
when you go back and watch the first one, like Vader's just a fucking big dumb idiot compared to this. Like Kirshen just knows how to shoot Vader. Like
Yeah.
they change what he looks like. Like the helmet kind of reflects all the incredible interiors, and like he's always in the center of the frame. He has very little dialogue, and like he isn't in the film that much, but he's such an intimidating presence. And
That's a good point.
he's brilliant.
While the first Star Wars film, I mean, this one also has them. Don't get me wrong. But while the first one, I feel like when Darth Vader's fighting Obi-Wan, it's built a bit more on tension. This one has some really good kind of more
Some good
combat oriented
choreography.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah.
the scene. I think specifically the section of the fight where he's just about to reveal the big twist that that little green alien is Yoda. Obviously, the big twist. Just before that entire section where they're fighting, you can feel like Vader's actually kind of trying to rip into him. His swings are a lot more
there's a lot of
He starts off,
It's
he's
just-
doing these kind of like little things. You get the
One-handed.
feeling he's just like, he's just testing and just going, yeah, you're half decent. Then like kicks him into the cryo thing, and then sort of after that, it's just like, huh, you weren't too bad. And then it just, then he gets more into it, and then he gets like pushed back a bit, and then like properly like pulls some of his dirty tricks of like being able to use the Force whilst fighting, and then like finally
The
gets
music in that bit is so good.
he gets
Yeah.
really pissed once he gets like properly scratched, and then just goes, oh, you know what, fuck your hand.
I was telling Tony earlier as well. I think what makes me love the twist so much is, well, the delivery's fantastic, but just the expression on Luke's face. I think that's like the best piece of acting he does in. The
You can
entire
tell he's gonna
franchise.
become the Joker in later in his career from that moment.
Yeah. The twist is really good as well, because thematically everything in the film builds up to the twist. It's not like a fucking just pulls the rug out under you, like, oh, fucking, what's it called? The thing where you just pull something out your ass. I can't remember what it's called now. It's left me. Deus Ex Machina. It's not like that. It kind of like everything builds up to the whole, like, Luke's been taught very binary, like the Force is good or bad. You have to kill Vader, and like he's about to do that, and then suddenly there's like this thing that kind of makes him doubt his beliefs. And
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think, yeah, you're right. If that hadn't been like set up better, that could have been like a really lame twist. It could have almost been, because there are just some twists that you know if they're done in a film, they'll normally be really bad. Like, oh, he was a ghost the entire time, or oh, two people, they're secretly just one person.
True
And this
Detective.
does have. It has that same kind of feel to it, but because it's pulled off so well, it's just a really good twist. In all fairness.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense when you like, oh, think about it. It's like, oh, Obi-Wan trained my father. Vader
Yeah,
was trained
and
by
I feel like
Obi-Wan.
the Return of the Jedi's best moments are when it kind of deals with this, deals with the kind of place Luke's in right now, and like all my favorite scenes in that film are the scenes that Luke is in, because when you know that like the Jedi were like trying to get him to kill his dad by not telling him it was his dad, it's pretty fucked up, you know. And the next film doesn't really try and shy away from that, and that's the good stuff from it. But yeah, good twist. I didn't see it coming.
To be fair, like the way it's delivered, like even though I know, but in that moment I was still like had a lot of shock, value just from how it's delivered.
It's because of Luke's reaction, just that look on his face. It's all scrunched up and he looks furious. It's really good.
You know what's great after he has that horrifying relation that he has a familial relationship with someone else in the film. He doesn't just throw away the entire plot of the story.
He tries to kill
He gets
himself.
back to it after that point. It's great.
I like
Just
that.
throw himself down a big hole.
I like that they put a scream in there and then got rid of that
Imagine
scream.
He throws himself down through that hole. He goes through the Imperial Senate and he's picked up by Space Jimmy Smith in that convertible.
He
I was
falls.
not powerful enough to beat him.
He falls in a really
Hey,
weird way, but I'm guessing that's the Force. But it just looks a bit off.
Falls down a slide.
Yeah.
Do we
I do
assume
love.
that Jimmy Smits dies on Alderaan in Episode 4. By the way.
Yeah, he does, because Rogue One.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. I love though when he slides along, he stops sliding, it's just about to get up, and then the hatch just opens underneath him. That's a brilliant little moment.
Yeah. I really like the end of this film. I feel like from the moment Luke lands on Bespin, it's pretty much like unfaultable until the end.
Oh.
Like you can have some complaints about like maybe there's some pacing issues or whatever. I don't agree, but it's definitely like the second Luke lands on Bespin or Cloud City, and like the whole "it's a trap" thing, the hand being frozen in carbonite, the escape, Luke fighting Vader, I am your father, going back to get him, fixing the hyperdrive.
So
Still great.
there's yet more torture in this one. Leia gets tortured in the first, then it's Han Solo in this one. I wonder if Luke's gonna have any form of mass pain.
Torture, man. I mean, it's too much torture. 1 out of 10.
I mean, to be fair, it's not on screen. I have literally no problems if it's off screen. If I don't see it. You know what's a great scene though? That is really smart.
When
Han Solo-
Odai eats that octopus.
The great scene where the Millennium Falcon like sneaks away from the Imperial Star Destroyer,
Yeah.
and it just
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair.
I think I
first time we see. Well, I say the first time it isn't because of Attack of the Clones, but technically, first time we see Slave One. What a great design! Actually, hang on. Am I the only one who thinks this is a good design for a ship?
I love
feel
Slave
like
One.
someone's
Slave One's great.
in the
It's quite
past.
cool, I think.
Yeah.
But it is a bit weird how it flies.
Yeah.
It does look
Yeah.
But I think that is the point. It's like a weird face coming to get you.
It's great.
Well, they don't really show it off that much, to be fair.
I think I touched upon it in the last film, but like in this one, you really get a sense of the Falcon as like a character, and like my favorite scenes, or some of them, are when it's just 3PO, Han, Leia, and Chewie, and the Falcon, and like I don't know, they're either flying to Bespin, or they're in the garbage chute, or they're in the asteroid that turns into a worm. You know, just those guys kind of like trying to get the Falcon to work, because the ship is just a piece of shit. And the whole plot would be fixed if they'd had a working hyperdrive. They'd have gotten away in the first like half an hour, and there wouldn't be a film. And I love that It's Not My Fault repeated. I love the 3 fake outs of the going to light speed, because it plays on the iconic shot in the original film. And like for me, you guys might disagree. I just think they're really fun. I love the way the characters interact. I think that 4 working together are great. You might not like 3PO. I love 3PO. I think he's the perfect foil to the other characters. I love how they all abuse him. It's great.
Yeah, no,
I think.
Yeah, no, go on, Jonathan.
Well, no, I think the droids were much weaker in this one than they were in the first, but I think every other character was a lot stronger in this one than the previous one.
Really, 3PO is great in this one though, because he actually he just gets to interact with more people than just R2.
I think that's his weak point. His strength is when he's interacting with R2, because his main comedy comes through delivering R2's thing. But when you separate them, I don't think that works as well. But no, it's some great.
I feel like C-3PO is a bit overused as like the butt of every joke in like the later bit of it. Like it's always just never tell me the odds, or shut up. It is funny, but I don't know. I don't know if I like as much the bit where he's just walking around legless with on the back of Chewie.
No, I love that as well. I love the fact that Chewbacca goes out of his way to fix him back up, and then C-3PO's just like, you put my head the wrong way around.
Yeah, it is kind of funny.
Do you like how R2-D2 shows up and saves the day?
It makes sense that because he's facing backwards, he's always describing the stuff that Chewie can't see.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, no, I think the characters. The character development in this film is it's one of the strong points, because you've already spent a film in these characters' company. So in the second one, when they have the banter, I find that I'm laughing even more and just chuckling at the things that they say, and the nice moments some of the nice moments between Han Solo and Princess Leia.
Yeah, I think it definitely plays off the fact that you've spent that first film with them, and you really believe when Han Solo goes out into the freezing wasteland, and he's like you're Tauntaun or freeze before the first marker, and he's like, then I'll see you in hell. And it's great.
Hell.
That energy behind
Christian hell.
Yeah.
Luke
So
isn't
the
just.
weirdest-
Well, wait.
No, I was just gonna say, the weirdest thing. This is me just being really dumb. But there's a part where C-3PO says something about a human, and I was like, wait, what?
Does it a couple
Because
of times.
I never thought. Yeah, I never thought that they were humans. I just thought that they were an alien species that looked like humans. But apparently they just.
Human beings.
They were doing Superman, where it's like, oh, we're Kryptonians, but we just look like humans.
Same.
So I've literally spent 18 years thinking, and I'm not even joking. I've spent all this time thinking they were just an alien race that kind of looked like humans, all of the humans in the film. And I've just realised on this watch of Empire Strikes Back, on that one line, that actually no, they are humans, and I've just been an idiot.
You missed out on in the first one how you had Han Solo
Jabba.
say to Jabba,
You're a wonderful human being.
yeah.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, okay.
Even though he's
Missed
not.
that.
I have literally no idea what I was going to say before.
Yeah, no, I had something I was going to say as well.
It was about the characters. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I got
Oh
it.
yeah.
Damn. We both have ours.
you go.
I'll go quick.
Yeah.
Luke isn't an A4 piece of paper in this film. He actually has personality. Okay, there you go.
Yeah. Yes. I don't really believe their friendship in the first one, whereas I do in this one.
Yeah.
I think this one's a lot better written. There's more moments and scope for them to be jumping off each other, because you have introduced now that they all know each other, and you just kind of skip a bit so you can just go, oh, Han, old buddy.
It's pretty ambitious to split them up as well.
Yeah. Do Do you think that might also possibly be because they show that Luke Skywalker's willing to drop, all of his training to go out and help these people, so he genuinely does really care about them.
Yeah.
I think that just goes to show that they are a very close-knit group.
It's the sort of, I mean, much as it's kind of a meme, but just when Leia leans in to kiss Luke, like after a whole kind of conversation with Han Solo, it's just like, these are three people that are just like constantly joking around with each other, basically.
Yeah.
I think the dynamic between Han and Leia is really strong in this one.
Definitely.
Because it's that love-hate back and forth that just it drives a lot of the scenes really well.
Yeah. It's also funny to see like a jealous Han Solo who kind of tries to keep Lando away from her towards the later parts of the film as well. Oh, but the first thing that Lando says and does when he sees Leia and he kisses his hand, it's so funny.
There's one shot where he's walked into a room and then tells Leia how beautiful she is, but it focuses on Han Solo. So for a bit, I was just like, wait, why is Lando saying that Han Solo is beautiful? Oh wait, no.
A lot of the best dialogue bits for me, apart from Vader, are the interactions between Han and Leia. Like, I really like the bit very early on where he goes, "Ha," and points at himself.
I like that just in Hoth it's just like these two, because I think Han is actually like a general of the rebellion at this point or something like that.
Captain, isn't he?
Yeah.
Captain.
You know what's
Captain
interesting?
and general just like hanging up their dirty laundry in these corridors full of rebels, just like if you're low down, just going, oh, they're my two superiors, arguing about how one of them secretly has a thing for the other. Anyway.
It's because they're a ragtag bunch of rebels, aren't they? All Americans as well. Just like to point that out. They deliberately had it so it was the Americans versus the Brits. So much so that they went back and dubbed over British actors, because loads of the rebels were British. They just dubbed over them with American accents. You can't even tell.
Roasted.
I know, right?
The bad guys again.
I love the Empire. We haven't even we touched on it briefly. The Empire is so good. Like, I love the chain of command, like the amount of people that die at Vader's wake.
Yeah. Just one of the best.
Yeah, I know.
One of the.
It's great. No.
What?
No, you go.
Yeah. Sorry, you made it seem like you're going to let me go, and then you made a noise to make it seem like you're going to continue talking.
Yes,
It was
I know. Sorry about that.
classic misdirection. So like one of the strongest moments of editing, I feel, is where you have an Imperial officer who says, just after losing them, I'm going to prepare my shuttle. I'm going to Vader. I'm going to tell him that I was responsible. And then you have another scene, and then suddenly you just have him like fall onto the floor, and then you have apology accepted, Captain Leader, and it's
Greatest line.
It's probably Darth Vader's strongest line. It's his funniest moment, and yet it works in his character, and just that sort of little moment, because like just works as an immediate way to like get in there, and like again shows the kind of just how scary Darth Vader is as a character. He's used really well in this film.
Yeah.
There's a really fantastic moment where I can't remember what part of the film it is or what's even happening, but basically either a captain or admiral gets told a series of bad news, and the last thing is someone goes up to him and says, Lord Vader's awaiting updates on what's happening, and then just look on his face, he just goes, oh shit.
Yeah.
It's the kind of like sparsity that Vader's used in. You don't see him flying a fucking ship in this one. It's kind of like when he appears, like he's framed in such a way that he's so intimidating. He's like even when he's moving, like he's just like miles taller and like more physically imposing. And then obviously the vocal work of James Earl Jones is so great. He's the best villain in anything ever. Just let's put that out. Vader in this. He's so good. I love him so much.
I like it.
He's only in it for like 10 minutes as well.
The end, the final shot of the Imperials you have, where the Millennium Falcon just goes off to light speed. You like have one of the Imperial officers, who I think is the one who said, "Oh yeah, we have disabled their hyperdrive." Just kind of looks worried. Like Darth Vader turns and then just storms out of the room. And it's sort of a moment of, I live.
God, I really like that kind of that ending. I love so much. But the fact that the plot of this film could essentially be boiled down to car won't start. like loads of stupid bits, like before the asteroid field where Han and Chewie are constantly trying to fix it, and like the spanner falls on his head. It's so dumb. It's so good. I love it.
Hydra spanners.
Hydra Spanner, man. And R2D2 kind of just shows up and saves the day like he always does. The most competent character.
I like how they kind of make a comment about how R2 just seems to be able to jack into everything, but like because he tries to open a door and then you realise from C-3PO that it's because he tried to use a plug socket instead of like an input.
Yeah. It's a nice joke. I like how, obviously, because the characters split up, the moment where their paths come across again is so great. You realise kind of what you've been building up to. That chaotic final act where they're trying to escape. Lando just becomes Han Solo, so much so that he's even wearing his clothes at the end. I still think is a bit weird.
That.
But
It's sort of
Lando's
like
great. The scene where they meet Lando's great as well.
Ah, yes. I think he's got a
I'm not
punch.
sure Lando fits as well into the group dynamic.
yeah.
How you
as Han
doing,
does.
you old pirate?
There's a brilliant moment where they've just come into orbit on Bespin, and they're talking about Lando, and Chewie says something, and Han just says something like, "Oh no, I'm sure he's forgotten about that," or something like that. It's just like, I hope he's talking about something in Solo.
We really don't need Solo because like
It
their
is
relationship
quite-
is so well established. Like even before they've met,
Yep.
like Solo just serves no purpose.
Yeah, it is well established, but that doesn't
it
mean
wasn't.
I don't want to see it. You know,
Yeah, but I saw it and it sucked.
if you think.
I feel like when things remind me of Solo, like it's not as bad as when things remind me of the prequels.
Nah, not at
it's,
all.
It's a
Oh,
lot
yeah,
better.
obviously.
Like at least like when you know like I won it off you fair and square. Like at least like that's the kind of things where it's like the prequels like over explains it and that takes away from the mystery. This does give like a concrete like explanation between like how Han Solo won the Millennium Falcon. But like when it reminds you of it in that moment, it's not as bad. It's
Yeah.
like I was there. You know?
That's absolutely true. If any of these films were to reference Rogue One or Solo, I wouldn't have a problem with it or anything like that at all. Or have something that makes you think back to those films rather, because you wouldn't really reference them.
I was going to say, it appears to be you're referring to it like
yeah.
these films referring to it, just like, oh yeah, just they knew they were going to release these in the future, so just.
Tony,
Yeah, absolutely.
I told you that
Oi.
Maskanata.
Tony.
Hang on. There was something I just wanted to say something as well. What I wanted to say was the one thing that I wasn't happy with that made me actually no, that's not true at all. I said it was going to make me think of decreasing my score, but that's not true at all. What it made me do was it reminded me of the bloody mission in Star Wars Battlefront 2 on Hoth. At the beginning, I'm just like, oh, for fuck's sake, I might actually dislike this film a little more. But no, I don't at all. Yeah.
That's great. I like
Hoth
the,
is great.
Yeah, I like the design of like the trenches, just them all lining up there.
it's really
Yeah.
I think some of the shots of like the speeders doing stuff I think are fairly weak, but just the overall look.
It's, for me anyway, it's better than the trench run because you're not seeing the same shot over and over. Tony, I want to ask you something.
Yeah, sorry, I can't hear very well.
Okay, no.
Speak up.
There were loads of people talking. Anyway, I was just going back to something you said earlier with Lando and how he doesn't fit in. Do you not think that opening scene where finally, after all these characters have been interacting, and you see Lando come into it, it's a really strong moment. Like where
yeah, he's definitely stronger when he's like introduced, but like the fact that like after the betrayal and it's like almost trying to frame it as like him being buddy, but he has just like kind of betrayed them.
he doesn't
It
really
feels
do
like
much
it's a
though.
bit quick that it's like kind of
Yeah.
expecting them to forgive him.
I don't know. I'd say is it a betrayal? Certainly, but I also think I think I would have disliked.
He is justified.
I think
to
I
be
would have
fair.
disliked it a lot more
Thanos.
if it had been Han Solo and that group had come to Bespin first, and then the Empire, and he'd made a deal with the Empire. But because the Empire came down first, it's kind of difficult for him to refuse that. He doesn't really have a
Yeah.
choice. He's got an entire colony to think
He's
about.
got
as well.
to accept
Yeah.
the terms of the deal.
Yeah.
It was
I was gonna
never
say,
part
if
of our
it was.
arrangement.
Yeah.
It must have been a good deal to start with, because this deal gets worse by the
This deal's getting worse all the
And I do
time.
like how he how when he like eventually like he just gets tired of the Imperials and he just like he contacts that guy with the weird
Lobot.
headphones.
Lobot.
Yeah, Lobot.
Such a good shot.
Yeah.
and then they all just like turn their guns on the Imperial troopers and then just take their weapons.
I like how he calmly picks up the stormtroopers' guns.
Yeah.
It's so great. So seamless. Right, guys.
Oh god, the amount of scenes where I was just reminded of like this is what I want to be reminded of my favorite Lego Star Wars levels, which I always do when I watch these films. It makes me
Ethan,
so happy.
Do you know what I think they should have done? I think Vader should have pulled out a picture of Padme and pointed to her. And then Luke should have gone no.
I mean, you gotta hand it to that Lego game. Like the Lego video games are the masters of communicating a story without any dialogue.
Only
Oh, I
the
love
masters
that.
of
They do
evil
it.
are.
They always do it in
especially
massive
especially the second one, which is kind of like how I got into Star Wars in the first place.
Yeah.
You know what they should do though? They have everyone like R2D2 is the only person that has like a fully like human voice.
Oh, man. He really doesn't like the fact that R2, like people interpret what R2 says. You can tell most of the time. I mean, Ben Burt's sound design is so good. The fact that Ben Burt's sound design was so good, he basically just like made Wally. Just like, yeah, I'm just gonna do R2 again, but better. What a guy.
Do you think Wally is better than R2? As a character?
Yeah, because the whole film is like Wally, and R2's like in this film for like, I don't know, about a fifth of its runtime maybe.
Fair enough.
So, but R2's scenes are great. He gives some, he breaks up the kind of Luke and Yoda serious stuff pretty well. Although the bits early on, like Yoda's early scenes, are some like the funniest in the film. And even like some of them was like when Yoda changes, you got Concentrate, which is fucking hilarious. The fact that this film like was like, oh yeah, Luke's gonna go and meet this like wise old teacher, and he turns out to just be fucking Kermit the Frog. It's so great. They got Frank Oz. It's
a brilliant puppet, and
it's so real. It looks like a character.
Yeah, it's a great performance. The sort of it just really works.
George Lucas like spent loads of money trying to get him nominated for Best Supporting Actor, but they didn't take it seriously because they didn't see being a puppet as acting. So that's just one of the many great George Lucas as a great producer stories, and not a great director.
I mean, in all fairness, if the Academy Awards can't take Andy Serkis seriously, then I doubt many people will have that chance in that department.
I feel like he was really shafted for when he said, "Oh, we're gonna get what is this, a funeral? Let's get some music in here." Should have won the Academy Award for that.
Nah, Gollum definitely should have been nominated.
Also, I've just remembered another great piece of music that's used throughout this film that I think is fantastic is the part. I don't know if any of the. I'm sure the tracks do have names, but the piece of music that I remember plays while the speeders are out searching for Han and Luke while they're going over the mountains. The dun 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 dun. That it's so good.
Yeah. I think it's the heroics of Luke and Han.
Yeah. I mean, like I said this in the previous podcast, but I honestly don't think. I don't know. I feel like I'm slightly betraying Ennio Morricone, but I'll say it anyway. I still think John Williams is the one who's able to capture, the tone and the theme of a particular scene with his music better than anyone.
Like the city in the clouds. You just like hearing a note from that. You just think of Bespin. It's incredible.
Yeah.
And there's a great video where Seth MacFarlane like is interviewing George Lucas, and he's like humming Star Wars themes, and George Lucas just does not know them. Just shows how he doesn't know his films. Like he didn't even like this until like he realized people loved it, and then he pretended it was great. Poor guy. Like so, this just to touch upon the production things again. It's obviously directed by Evan Kershner. George Lucas had the least to do with it, which is probably why it's the best one. But they ran out because he didn't want to. He wanted to kind of break away from Hollywood because he hates Hollywood because they fucked him over when he made that robot cyborg film with Robert Duvall. Can't remember what it's called. TK something. TX something. But yeah, he got fucked over by Hollywood, so he was like, I'm just gonna finance this with my Star Wars money, and he did for the most part, and then it ran massively over budget because like all the Hoth shooting stuff was a nightmare apparently, and obviously shooting in a swamp that was obviously pretty bad as well. So George Lucas, out of pocket and with a bank loan, finished the film, he fell out with the producer, and that's why he never worked with them again. He actually directed and re-edited the film. So he directed some scenes and then re-edited the film, but that's not the final version because apparently his edit was terrible. It doesn't surprise me. But
Hey Harry.
Yep.
That film is called THX 1138.
Thank you. That's the one. That was his.
And it is Robert
feature.
Duvall, yeah.
Yeah, that was his first film that got like he made a version of it, and then the studio released a different version, which is why he hates the Hollywood system. But also, like some of my favorite stories. These are straight from IMDb trivia. So sorry about that. But is one of them is that because of there were rules that meant that films had to start with the credits.
Yeah, I've heard that.
But Star Wars didn't, but because it was such a small film, they didn't give a shit. And then and they really didn't want him to do the same here. So they essentially tried to like stop him, which they realized they couldn't do. So they like gave him like the biggest fine that they could possibly give, and gave Kirshner a huge fine as well, of about $250,000 each, which Lucas paid off for both of them. And he left the writers actors SAG or whatever it's called because he was so annoyed about it. But he did all that just so we could have the opening crawl, and it's kind of he believed like the immediacy of it was a lot more impactful, and that's pretty much changed because every film now just starts. He kind of changed the way.
I think it's a lot better that it has it at the end, where it's starring all the people, and then directed and produced by.
Yeah, the fact that he like pumped all the money into the film, he trusted the creative team behind it. Apparently, the kind of the stress of trying to release it had a huge impact upon his like personal life and kind of like ruined his marriage and stuff. It was pretty bad. But at least we got this film. Thank you, George Lucas.
Yeah.
For making this film somehow.
I do feel bad for Lucas. Like, I mean, I can't feel that bad for him, and he's filthy rich. But
yeah, Star Wars kind of like ruined his career.
There's definitely a lot of his talent shows through in this original trilogy. So I do think it is a bit unfair when we like rail on him because these are great. These are great. They do exist.
But they're not really like I know that the Star Wars is his film, but then he almost like takes a back seat. He was forced to come out in Jedi a bit more because that film had way more production problems than this. But he almost he came up with the original idea for the story, but he hands it over to like two very talented screenwriters and a third who is uncredited, who draft wasn't used, but I think they made some contributions. I can't remember how it goes exactly. Different director, the cinematography, the score, the editing, the sound design, everything is great, and his production work was obviously brilliant. Well done. Good on George.
He's just the glue that holds it all together, I feel.
Yeah,
he's like the
Lucas
Force,
film.
George Lucas surrounds us, binds us, penetrates us.
surrounds us.
He's emanated through all living life forms.
Yeah.
Especially dead life forms.
Yeah.
Through the earth, that shit. Oh man, Yoda lifting up the X-wing, so good.
Yeah, that is really good. Oh, in fact, I feel like we haven't even. I feel we've mentioned so many of the best lines in the films, but I feel like we've missed a lot of brilliant lines. The part where he's like, yeah, when what is it he says? Do or do not, there is no try. It's another very classic line. For this film.
Yoda is just a self-help book.
All the Yoda's lines are pretty great. Apart from like, give me that.
He wants that candle.
The light.
Oh my god.
I wonder if we'll get the light, a Star Wars story. Yeah, there's so many. I think that in terms of great dialogue, the scene which ends with the kiss, the infamous incestuous kiss, that scene has some great dialogue. Like, why you stuck up half-witted, scruffy-looking Nerd Herder, who's scruffy-looking, laugh it up, fuzzball. It's all pretty consistently great. What are your guys' favourite lines?
Oh god, I think. Well, I love pretty much all the dialogue that comes from Darth Vader because I think he's so well written. I just I mean, there's almost like a level of wit to him sometimes that I really like. I always think my favourite line from this entire franchise is the one that he says in the previous film, which is something. Oh god, that's funny. I've forgotten it. It's my favourite line. It's the thing that he says in that scene when he's force choking that guy. He's like,
Don't be too proud of this technological terror you constructed. The power of the Force is not.
No.
Damn.
Other than "Don't choke on your aspirations," says Rogue One. That's my favorite line from Vader.
Apology accepted to Captain Ida.
Yeah, that's a
Oh,
great
that's
one.
in this one.
That is
You'll be
also
honoured if you were to join us.
all too
No,
easy.
sorry. Oh, damn, this is pretty stupid. It's my favourite line and I've completely forgotten it. It'll come back to me at some point.
I have you now. Oh, that's from the previous one.
All too easy.
Yeah.
I find your lack of faith disturbing. That's what it is. That's the line I really, really like from The New Hope. But pretty much anything that Vader says in this film is like, it's really good. Apology accepted, Captain Ida. Yeah, all the stuff that he says about Obi-Wan has trained you well, and things like that. I really like.
That final battle. I'd just like to say, again, for my music theory, if you took away the music from the bit where he's just throwing stuff at Luke, it would be so fucking dumb.
yeah. I almost did chuckle slightly because there are some really funny parts where Luke is moving so slowly.
Yeah.
And it looks like he's trying to destroy something, and there's something coming at him in the opposite direction. It just looks a little bit dumb.
Yeah, he's like behind where he should be swinging and keeps on getting hit in the back.
I really like the music. Like, that bit of music is just so great. Like that entire fight. I like how it starts and it's silent, and you can just hear the smoke and the clashing, and it looks amazing.
Oh,
like the lighting effect is so nice.
Darth Vader's breath at some point when once he's been
Yeah, when he goes missing.
Yeah.
Oh, do you remember Darth Vader's leap off the stairs as well?
Yeah.
Where he kind of just glides across.
When Luke just flies up from the hole.
Do you remember Luke's super speed jump?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I like when
He's stuck in the
when
carbonite freezer, he just super speed jumps up. I'm like, oh my god, it's back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like when Luke just causes Darth Vader to choke for a bit. That's by holding the gas, the severed gas thing towards his face. It's like, what's the respirator for?
Guys, because we all watched the special edition, so what do you think of the scene with the Emperor?
I like it.
I think it's alright, yeah. I mean, I can't compare it to anything else. I don't mind the Emperor in the prequels.
I see. I
yeah.
see why Snoke was a big boy now. It's just like what the Sith seem to do.
I think it's a good. I don't know. I think it's a really good introduction to the Emperor because you see him in this massive hologram. You pretty much just see his face, and he's kind of got this kind of looming thing going.
It's good in this version.
Who does that way better is Snoke in Episode 7. That's so good.
I mean, I'm not going to agree with that because I don't think it is, but fair enough. It definitely is still good.
You just see it's like, oh, he's that big, and it just tricks you out with being a hologram.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't believe that Sheev Palpatine is massive.
If you've seen the comparison video, the original Emperor looked really and sounded very odd, and obviously special editions. I say the special edition is probably the best way to watch this film. They didn't really make a lot of bad changes, and but don't watch the DVD one, watch the Blu-ray one.
Didn't they add?
They had the scream.
Wampa in this one.
Yeah, I like the Wampa. I think the Wampa looks good. It's better to show him. He looks cool.
It's weird when you just get the sudden face up. That's a bit weird. Then you just have the hand that just kind of smushes up into Luke's face. Yeah. People think that they had that because Luke got it. I say Luke. No, fuck.
Mark Hamill got in a car accident.
Yeah, got into a car accident and had to have some surgery done on his face, I think.
Yeah.
And so,
that's not true. It's one of those myths that's gone around because it fits so conveniently because Luke has facial scarring, but no, because that accident happened a year before they shot it, so it's a nice story.
Yeah.
It's like Han Solo, in the first one.
I like how again in this one it was they're going Han Solo is he gonna stay or is he gonna go, and just that's kind of. They were just saying that to Harrison Ford basically. It was like, hey, are you staying or are you going?
If I don't pay off this bounty, I'm a dead man. But yeah, the fact that him and Leia are forced into that situation together, and their scenes are so good. They get cock blocked by 3PO.
Oh, that's a good scene.
Right. Are we nearing the end of this
Yeah,
discussion?
I feel like we're
Yeah, I
winding
think we should
down.
move on to rating things. But I mean, the fact that I think it goes to show that we've all really liked Empire Strikes Back, because this entire podcast has pretty much just been us talking about our favourite moments from the film.
Can I
which there are
reveal
lots
something
of.
to you now?
Yeah, someone could just like watch the film instead of seeing this review.
Sorry, what was that, Harry?
Can I reveal something to you, Ethan? I've not
why
actually
not?
seen Empire Strikes Back.
Well, I don't actually go to Sheffield.
Yeah, it's a piece of shit.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's no The Last Jedi.
Right. Who's going to score first?
I don't know. Maybe I should still go first. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've already filled in on the scorer. I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10 because I think it's my favorite film. And if I don't give my favorite film a 10 out of 10, then I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Yeah, I think for me this is pretty clearly a 10. Like, there's not a moment I don't like have a smile on my face watching this film. Like, the way it's structured is so great. It keeps such great forward momentum and gives you a few moments of quiet reflection. Characters are great. They all play well together. Some brilliant performances. We haven't mentioned Carrie Fisher. She's a lot better in this film compared to the last one. Obviously the score's amazing. Cinematography and direction outstanding. I really like the miracle of this film existing and like changing kind of how we perceive Star Wars. It's not just this like fun adventure film. It's got a lot more depth. The world's a lot bigger, a lot wider. It's a lot darker, and really I just enjoy watching it. I know it's widely and critically considered to be the best, but a lot of people wouldn't consider it their favorite because they prefer watching the other two being more fun. Whereas for me, I find even though there are darker moments, it's probably the most fun one. I love the bits in the Falcon with all the characters. I personally love C-3PO, especially in this film. What a guy. Anyway, yeah, it's a pretty definitive 10 for me. And it's never going to change, I don't think. Maybe it won't be my favourite film one day, but it'll always be a 10 out of 10.
So where is it on the ranking then? Is it right below episode 3 then?
I don't know, it's yeah, it might just sneak in at the top. Okay, who's going to go next?
Yeah, shall I go next?
Yeah.
Oh,
Go
okay,
for
let's
it.
see this drum
I mean,
roll.
I think I know what Ethan's going to give it, so but it's up to you.
Yeah, well, yeah, this was a lot better, I felt, than the previous one. I felt like the character moments were a lot stronger. The shots were stronger, and the design of things was stronger. And I already felt the design was pretty strong in the first one. And I feel it had a better. I don't know. It had some good comedy moments. I felt that C-3PO was weaker in this one, but overall, I think it's a 9.
Nice
So
job.
it's up 2 from the previous one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Boba
don't
Fett's
forget
cool.
that Boba Fett is cool
Yeah,
as well.
Boba Fett's cool. Can't believe we didn't mention that. The fact that he's like one of the most
No,
beloved
he doesn't
characters in
have
the
that
film. He
many
doesn't.
scenes,
He doesn't.
to be fair.
Yeah, but he just steals. He's just
Put
such a good
Han
design.
Solo in the cargo hold, it's I say that once every time on.
He's no good to me dead.
Yeah, but do you know what Boba Fett isn't cool in Return of the Jedi?
He's so cool when he looks at the camera during Jedi Rocks and when he gets eaten. Spoilers.
Yeah, but it's such a dumb death, isn't it?
No,
The way that
it's
he
all
dies.
about that bit where they meet Jabba the Hutt and then there's 4 Boba Fetts.
I don't want this to go on forever, but like the bounty hunters are great.
Yeah.
All of their
Yeah.
designs
I
are
love-
great.
Right.
I love that Darth Vader goes specifically up to Boba Fett and points at him and goes, "No
know.
disintegrations," as though like Boba Fett has previously
you wish.
just come up with like, the Wookiees are disintegrated. Oh, I can't do the voice.
Could you imagine if Darth Vader just turns to Boba Fett and says, "No lightsaber beheadings"?
Disintegration. As you wish. What a great film.
What are you gonna give it, Jonathan?
I've given it a 9.
No?
I think.
So it's your favourite one.
Yeah, it tops the thing. I feel like, despite what you said, I feel I mostly hear people putting it at the top. Occasionally they'll
Really?
put Star Wars. Yeah, occasionally they'll put Star Wars above it, sort of going, that's a more complete thing. like
From-
complete
yeah,
as
but
one
it's just-
single film. But
So
I,
we both listened to Star Wars Minute. Like, you always see people putting like Star Wars or Jedi at the top. Like,
yeah.
from my experience, like I feel like a lot of people like know that this is supposed to be the best one, but don't. And like I've gone into it actively thinking like I don't want this to be my favorite one because it's so generic. But like I always get like I've actively watched this film looking for things to dislike, and I've never found any. I found little bits and bobs. Like Han Solo's a little bit rapey, but
Yeah.
nothing to like make me go, okay, this is not a 10. This is not the best Star Wars film. This is not the best film I've seen.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel the usual order people give is Empire, New Hope, and then it's sort of like Jedi, or if they liked Rogue One, it's one of those, or perhaps if they really
Yeah.
like Revenge of the Sith, and then it's just like a free for all of which one of the prequels they didn't like the most.
And Phantom Menace, I've seen a lot of love for Phantom Menace on the internet now. And it's bullshit 'cause it's terrible, and this is great. Ethan, what would you give it?
This is my favourite film in the franchise, and I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10 because it's one of my all-time favourite films.
Wow.
Yeah, I think you might actually get... What was it you were thinking, Harry? 37 or so, right?
Yeah, depends what Tony gives it.
Yeah, I guess it does. I just can't really say anymore. I will say that I forgot another one of my favourite moments in the film, which is towards the beginning. I think, because they're prepping for the battle, and what I really, really like is that there's a bunch of rebels outside, and there's like a really quiet moment, and they look in the distance, and you can see these kind of black objects moving towards you, but you can't quite see what they are yet. And then you get a proper moment when you see the AT-ATs, and it's just fantastic.
Imperial Walkers,
Sort of like-
they're
It's a
never
good reveal.
referred to as AT-ATs.
It's a good reveal,
yeah.
and it's kind of ruined by Rogue One because you see them in Rogue One, but you know,
Mm.
and also it makes no sense
Yeah,
that they'd
yeah.
be there in Rogue One because the whole point was like they were a vehicle specifically designed for this ground assault. Also, I love the guy
but-
that fucking comes out of light speed too fast, and Vader just
But
chokes him over a TV screen.
We've already mentioned a lot of moments in, I think, this film and the original Star Wars where that would have been really cool if we hadn't already seen that be done in a different one, like the way that the Force can
Yeah.
be used to kind of levitate.
It'd be cool if I
objects
hadn't
and
watched the
stuff like
prequels and knew that Darth Vader was Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah.
God damn the
Yeah.
prequels.
Yeah, so 10 out of 10 from me.
Yeah. So Tony, what
Nice.
do you think?
Alright, is it up to me? Sorry, I don't want to intrude on anyone else.
Yeah.
This one is quite good. Yeah, I really do like it. I think I have played a bit of devil's advocate, trying to point out a few flaws, but genuinely, like, it is really good. And I definitely would agree that in terms of, you know, shot composition, all the things we've discussed, it's a great, you know, technical improvement over the last one. And I really like how, you know, it expands the Star Wars mythos in its own way. It's really cool. You know, Yoda is, you know, one of the best characters of all time. I'll go on record to say that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll die on that.
And he's not even the best character in this film.
Yeah, but at the same time, I do have a few problems with it. You know, I'm not sure. I guess, I don't know. I've tried to talk about them, but they are a bit vague, and they'll probably be a bit easier to pin down after I've seen episode 3, or episode 3, for fuck's sake, episode 6. Or maybe I might just be completely lying to myself and think, oh no, it's perfectly fine after I see how, you know, all the story threads get concluded. But I think it is really close to the one before, though. I think it is. I think I'll go on record to say it's another 9 out of 10. Very, very great, very great. I'm definitely, you know, a worthy part of the successor to the one that came before it.
Is it worse though?
But in its own, you know, unique way.
Tony?
And I'll say that
Is it worse, Tony?
I will say it is very slightly below the first one, though. I think I just prefer. Like, I like that this expands it. I feel like it has a bit more of like a gritty sort of military thing, almost like Rogue One did, but not in the same kind of way.
It's like the Empire is striking
But
back.
just sorry, Harry, you say something?
It's like the Empire is striking back.
Yeah. I do like that the Empire is a lot better in this, but I don't know. Something about Luke being on a what's his name, desert planet, Tatooine. Just that sense of mystery and wonder when Star Wars was just, you know, little babby film. kind of just appeals to me a bit more. But like I said, I might 180 on this opinion. It is circumstance to change once I see it all as like a completed thing.
I like how me and Ethan have almost the same ranking, except for one.
Oh, really? What's the one?
I think Attack of the Clones is the worst one. You think The Phantom Menace is the worst one.
Yeah, I mean, in the same way that Tony thinks that Empire and New Hope are quite close in terms of how good they are, I mean, Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones are pretty much as bad as each other. But
Yeah.
Phantom Menace is boring bad, whereas
You've
Attack
all
of the
got
Clones is
Phantom
funny
Menace
bad.
bottom. I've got Attack of the Clones
Yeah.
bottom.
Fair enough.
I think.
Oh, that's all going to change because I really like Return of the Jedi, and I know that you're not a massive fan.
Oh no, I think it's like the third best, but like compared to Empire, it's like no good. Because you're like comparing like my favorite film to like a film I think is good. Maybe it's okay. I don't know. I need to see it again because I'm really bipolar on that film. I flipped from like a 9 to like a 4 before, just on viewings. I just don't know what to do with that film. Such a mess.
Yeah, sounds like me with Mulholland Drive. I don't fucking know what
So,
that film is.
I'm looking
I don't know
forward
what
to
the
watching it
story
with
is
you.
for. Yeah. What, Mulholland Drive?
Yeah, and Return of the Jedi. David Lynch's
Nice.
Return of the Jedi. Nice little link there.
Oh, fuck, I didn't even realise that I'd done that. I genuinely was just using Mulholland Drive as an example of, like, I don't know what to score a film.
Alright, let's move on to Return of the Jedi now. Hello, welcome to the third part of the third episode of SW Marathon Mediate Edition. This is Return of the Jedi, which is the third or sixth Star Wars film, I guess.
Or ninth, if you count it wrong.
Yeah. Came out in 1983, I think.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's fine. It's alright. What does anyone else think about Return of the Jedi?
It's the I'll say it's the thrilling conclusion to the original trilogy saga, which I'm sure everyone already knew, but
I mean, I just say it's the conclusion to the trilogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's so thrilling about it?
It's not particularly thrilling.
oh come on, am I gonna be the only episode 6 defender in this episode?
Well, I thought
That's fine.
I thought that it was a really good film before I watched it, and then I went back and watched it with Jonathan, and I'm thinking, not as good as I remember. So possibly.
No.
Well, I will agree. I don't think it's as strong as the first two we had in this trilogy. I feel like, you know, the first installment, it had that sense of like wonder and like Western style sort of mystery to the world, and then it's sort of in the middle it expanded on it in like a new and interesting, like a bit darker way. And this one is just teddy bears and Jedi rocks. However, I think it's got such a good setup from the first two films, mainly in my opinion just the conclusion of the Darth Vader redemption arc, that it's just so strong on that, by virtue of just getting to be the thing that finishes this saga, getting to be the thing at the end where all the Gungans say "we're free," which made me dislike the film.
Wait,
but
can I
oh
talk
well.
about the special edition? Because
Go ahead.
there's obviously, we've probably, apart from you guys who watched the specialised version of the original film, and fair play to you for doing that. This is my least favourite special edition. There's so many annoying changes.
Yeah.
The Gungans at the end, they changed the song, they changed another song. Jedi Rocks is in this film,
Oh, Jedi Rock.
and it wasn't in the original version.
I had
and
a
it's
feeling
still
it
the-
wasn't.
It's still the only scene I forward in any Star Wars film. It's just, I can't watch it. It's the worst thing.
It is a true nightmare, and we'll get onto that. But in its defense, you know what is a good addition? It's Anakin at the end as a Force Ghost.
No!
I like that. That's cool.
It makes no sense.
It does make sense.
Why isn't Obi-Wan a fucking ghost?
What?
why isn't it Ewan
Obi-Wan a
McGregor?
young? Well, it's because it's
Yeah.
at the point when they died, Harry. When Anakin became Darth Vader, in a sense,
the
Darth
whole
Vader
point-
killed
The
Anakin.
whole point of the
The
Mind
whole
film
point is
blown.
at the end he gets
turned-
redeemed. So
Yeah,
Anakin's old.
well,
So
I
Anakin
don't
should have
know.
been old, like he was in the original.
I don't know.
Have you guys not considered that maybe,
I thought it was
just
a
maybe,
neat
ghosts can appear in any form from their life that they want to?
That is
So,
true.
If
He-
Anakin wants to return back to a time when he was played by a much worse actor than Alec Guinness, then he's more than welcome to.
Yeah, maybe Obi-Wan just likes
Bro.
being old.
Not Alec Guinness, sorry, David Prowse. I just confused two different characters.
Well, the whole thing about Vader is he's played by like 5 different people. Like you've got the physical actor, the voice actor, the guy behind the mask, and then Hayden Christensen.
Well, I mean, nobody cared who he was till he put on the mask.
The guy behind the mask. Isn't that just David Prowse?
No, it's Sebastian Shaw, I think he's called.
So what
Yeah,
do you mean
Sebastian
by
Shaw.
the guy behind the mask? Surely there's just an actor who
When
is
the
just...
mask goes off in Return of the Jedi, that's not David Prowse, that's Sebastian Shaw.
Oh, no way. Oh, that's cool.
So yeah,
Didn't know
there are
that.
like 3 Vaders. Plus Hayden
Wow.
Christensen.
And then don't forget the
Jake Lloyd.
youngling at the
Yeah.
very beginning.
Oh yeah, Jake Lloyd as well. How can I forget
Can you
Jake Lloyd?
imagine if it had been Jake Lloyd at the end?
Yippee!
He has a name and
No,
everything.
can you imagine if you could see the entire Darth Vader lineage, like at once?
Speaking of like Jake Lloyd and the whole idea of ring theory, this film feels like the Phantom Menace because it's better than the Phantom Menace obviously, but like it's kind of like unapologetically fun and light-hearted.
It's the most like the prequels of the originals.
Yeah, we already.
Yeah.
We already
Yeah, you could
mentioned
see
that,
some
didn't
of
we?
that George
Yeah.
Lucas like burgeoning through. What I will say though, I think it's the most prequels you can have while still being good, because like the teddy bear aliens, which are I will say the majority of this film, they are like towing the line between being like a bit too ridiculous. There's one scene where he's just like a teddy bear is looking at his fallen comrade teddy bear, and there's like a small pause, and you're like, is this too much? But I feel like for the rest of the film, like it genuinely, I don't know, keeps up, yeah, like you said, a good sense of fun and energy without being a bit too wacky and zany in parts. In my opinion.
I feel like it's either like fun, as in like, oh, this is so much fun, I'm enjoying this is great, you know, like great jokes, like I'm enjoying spending time with these characters, and then at times it's like so bad it's good. Like there are, so like I never dislike anything apart from Jedi Rocks. Like even the stuff that's a bit shit, I'm still having fun with. Because this film is like it's not amazing, but it's still fun.
No, I still really like the intro scene.
It's
the
pretty
whole
satisfying.
thing with Jabba.
Yeah, the first
I
40
probably like
minutes.
it more than the the Hoth fight from episode 5 or whatever.
Wow.
Just
It's pretty bold to have like 40 minutes that are unrelated to the rest of the film.
I suppose that is just the bridging the gap kind of thing.
Yeah, but you
Yeah.
can't just shoot straight into the film when Han Solo's just with the crew with no explanation as to how they managed to rescue
That's
him.
classified
I don't know.
private.
To be fair, they could have though. If they really wanted to, they could have. They could have had one line of like Leia saying, "I hope you're worth the 10,000 credits we used to buy you back from Jabba the Hutt," and like not done anything. But then you,
Yeah,
but
but-
then you get actually a scene of like Luke actually being like, yeah, full on Jedi Knight. You know, using his mind tricks to get into a palace. You know,
Yeah,
using
but Tony-
patience and all the stuff he's been taught over the last 2 films.
Tony,
Yes.
if we didn't have like the first 40 minutes of that film, then there wouldn't be any Jabba's palace, would there? And there wouldn't be an opportunity for our friendship to have split.
We would have stayed friends, Ethan. We would
Yeah.
have formed Mediate like 4 years earlier. We would be on Star Wars Episode 12 by now. As if time worked that way.
Can I say the obvious? Force Awakens is the same as New Hope, like criticism that everyone has about this film. What the fuck is Luke's plan?
What plan? Which plan? At what point?
The plan to get Han out. It's so convoluted and ridiculous. There's so many elements to it.
I think he just has faith in the Force, though. I think like he just goes in and is like, yeah, I just mind Jedi my way in. You know, he does
If
have
the
like
whole
a
idea
good...
is to like get everyone out and get Han, it's like the worst way of going about it by sending everyone in twos, getting them stuck in there, just
Yeah.
having Lando work there for some reason.
I want to see the Star Wars story where Lando gets a job as just a guard.
The whole film was just him looking up on his helmet so you can see it's him.
What I was thinking was that the plan was that you have these pairs and they all go in and they kind of have their shot at trying to rescue Han Solo. So I don't think Luke Skywalker's plan was for all of them to go there. It was like, if you go in and don't come out after like a specific amount of time, as soon as you've been captured, and then I'll have a go. and then if
Yeah.
we're all stuck down there, then we'll have to, I don't know, do something or other. I think he's got the R2D2 thing with the lightsaber, which was planned in advance, wasn't it? Or something?
Yeah, I mean, other than that, all of it was just fight when I give the signal, you know. And the only complicated thing is the fact that R2 gives Luke his new green lightsaber just for a cool reveal. Because there's
It
no
fails
reason.
at the first hurdle though, because just say R2 and 3PO go in, the first people to go in. Jabba accepts the offer, lets Han go. R2 and 3PO just belong to Jabba now, and they need to go and break them out.
I don't know, Harry.
It makes no sense.
To be
It's just a fun sequence, apart from Jedi Rocks
The thing is, I
and the
actually
phallic imagery.
I like Jedi Rocks.
It's a good song.
it was the kind of thing where I'm like, this isn't even like, apart from the CGI, like the song isn't even abjectly horrible. But
The
like,
fact that
I'll
they
agree.
break the fourth wall in it.
But yeah, but like the way they like stare straight ahead of the camera, and like the fact that it's just so jarringly like, I want to say tone breaking, but it's not even that bad, to be honest. It just feels so like, I think I've been desensitized to bad Star Wars from the prequels. But the fact that this just comes out and you're just in shock, like it's abject terror watching it, you know.
And also the fact that like all these like amazing animatronics and like creature designs in Jabba's palace like still hold up today, and then you just have to stare at the CG monster for like 2 straight minutes instead of admiring all the other creatures in the background. It's very jarring.
Oh, man, do you guys not like Sai Snootles then?
See the one that screams?
She's the one with the lips, I think.
Oh no, she looks like something from Monsters Inc.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
not
you
as
know-
good.
She was improvising those lyrics on the spot, and they were so saucy that they embarrassed the prudish Bib Fortuna.
Oh my god. You know the best line of this film is the thing that Bib Fortuna says right at the beginning.
You want a wonga?
You want a wonga?
The best line is when Luke and Han are going on the barge. He says, "I grew up here. I was born here, you know." Then he goes, "Gonna die here, you know."
No, that is a good
That's
line.
clearly the best line.
Yeah, you know, the banter is still there. I like how Han is just blind at the beginning for some reason.
Yeah, blind kills Boba Fett.
I know, like in this
Still
film
the
makes
best
you realise how lame Boba Fett is. Like he literally
he
does
sucks.
nothing in the entire
just looks
trilogy.
cool.
Yeah, he does just look cool, to be fair.
He's very good at crossing his hands and nodding. Is what we crossing his arms and nodding.
Speaking of nodding, the everyone nodding back and forth scene that is also parodied in the Star Wars Family Guy spin-off thing, where it's the horn blowing. Everyone just looks to the left and looks to the right. That is so good in both this and the Star Wars Family Guy.
Yeah, the music's really great in this film. I mean, it's more of the same from John Williams. It's the worst of the 3 scores, but there are some great themes. Like the Emperor's theme is incredible. The Ewok theme is great, and obviously the escape from the Sail Barge is great. But mainly the Emperor's theme, because the Emperor is so good. What a guy. Love him.
Good.
I'm afraid the deflector shield.
Yeah, do you remember the part where he says that this battle station is now fully operational? Then next thing we see is Lando saying, "That thing's online," or whatever he says.
Yeah, so like the Emperor is just like, the laser is operational or whatever, you may fire when ready. It shoots. The Lando's like, that blast came from the Death Star.
It's operational!
Just like hammering home the point that the Death Star is operational.
Yeah. Also, what is Lando Calrissian's life? He's done most things, hasn't he?
Yeah.
In his
To be-
existence.
he is channeling the spirit of childish Gambino, aka Donald Glover, by just being able to do anything he wants. You know, it's like, yeah, I'll be a general after I, spend the last however long running a mining colony, and before that being a professional gambler or whatever.
Oh no! Do you know what is hilarious? The speeder sequence and the little shoulder shoves that Luke does with one of the stormtroopers, and the part where he throws a stormtrooper into a tree and he hits it, and just the way he kind of goes when he falls down to the ground.
Yeah.
That's not a good sequence.
Yeah, it's
it
pretty
is
bad.
A terrible sequence. Yeah.
The CGI does not hold up for that bit.
Nah.
To be honest, I thought the speeder scenes from episode 4 looked like way better, where he's just on the desert, and I guess that's just easier to like, I don't know how they did it, but like erase whatever's beneath them when it's like a flat terrain versus trying to realistically bob and weave between all these trees. To be fair, it must have looked good back in 1983, but I guess we're a bit spoiled now.
The moment where you realise that the battle between the Ewoks and the Stormtroopers is so ridiculous is when pretty much the first thing you see is an Ewok firing an arrow, and it pierces the armour of one of the Stormtroopers and they go down.
Yeah, exactly. That makes just the Stormtrooper armor like actually useless.
Yeah.
Like, because fair enough if it can't like dodge like direct blaster hits or whatever, but the fact that just a fast stick can pierce that armor. Oh man, yeah.
And the fact as well that the Emperor just says, there's a legion of my best troops down.
Oh, I forgot about that.
See, I don't really have a problem with the Ewoks. I think my problem with the Battle of Endor is the geography of it. The whole thing is like them trying to get into a building, and like you've got three things going on at once. You've got the really great bits with Luke and Vader and the Emperor, like the stuff that's like 10 out of 10 quality, and then you've got the trying to blow up the Death Star, which again I can't really get a sense of. That's fun. That's fine. It's not the best. And then the Battle of Endor, which is just like nonsense. It's just literally people trying to get into a room.
To be fair, I do
Also,
like...
it's got the bit where
do...
Han taps him on the shoulder when he's around the corner.
That's so good, that's so good. I do like the Star Wars Home Alone edition, like, all the ridiculous traps that the Ewoks have built. Like, because it's so ridiculous, but, like, I think, like, on some strange level, I think it works. Like, when they have the two, like, logs that just come down and crash the walker thing. It's not the ATAP or whatever the small version is called.
ATSD.
That's it.
When do they explain how C-3PO has all of those sound effects built into his system?
Yeah, that bit always annoys me. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
How can you do this?
He
But I
just
do
has
love
like
that he's a god thing.
Yeah, that's pretty good. But he just has like lightsaber sounds and explosions built into his system.
I mean,
he's
he's a robot. He could just record and playback sounds like my Snowball microphone is doing right now.
How did he record the Death Star blowing up? He was on Yavin.
He watched the film, Ethan. I don't know.
I love that. Yeah, his way of talking to them is just to like basically just say it in English. Then there's a few like random yum nubs, and then just says it again in English. It's like, how is there an intelligible story from like Han Solo?
Yeah.
Death Star.
The best thing is when they couldn't be bothered to figure out an Ewok word for carbon. So there's just a bunch of random like pizza, what's that? And then carbon.
Just how are they explaining that process
I
to
don't
Ewoks?
know.
Just like
They're intelligent beings. Don't
Yeah.
attack my boys, the Ewoks.
I think I am pro Ewok. Yeah, I'll die on that hill. Why not?
Yeah, they're just fun.
They are.
I think I do have a problem with like what they're trying to achieve in that battle. Like, it's not like they're trying to get somewhere. It's like we're waiting outside a door for like half an hour.
Yeah, I don't know.
And it kind of sucks.
I
But,
do like. Oh, sorry, you go ahead.
Nah, it's fine. I mean, like, I as quickly as possible, I want to get onto the actual good storyline in this film. The Luke Vader
I
stuff.
just will quickly say that how the Ewoks are introduced both through Leia and then through the rest of the cast just shows how great Leia is, you know, just how she like immediately like establishes diplomacy with this strange alien race, and within like 30 seconds Chewbacca and Luke and Han, they're all just caught in a massive net somewhere, you know.
In terms of like the characters in this film, I think Leia's definitely like the best. Like, she has more to do. She gets the "I love you, I know" moment. It's like Leia's really great. Luke's iffy. Like, Luke's got really great moments, great scenes, But then there are some scenes where Mark Hamill is clearly very high. He's being intense. Like, Master Yoda, you can't die. And the bit where he tells Leia that their brother and sister, like Mark Hamill, is high in that scene, I'm sure. He's just so intense. He doesn't blink once. It's weird. But then he's also has great moments, you know, especially later on. And then Harrison Ford is pretty terrible. He's kind of just like, he clearly doesn't want to be there.
He's so bad in it.
Yeah, he's half-arsing it, so he's still funny, and he's still, like, quite charming. But he so obviously doesn't want to be there.
Yeah, it's just the delivery of all of his kind of like quips and little bits of banter. He just gets, I think he misses the mark so often.
Yeah.
It just ends up coming off really forced from him.
The dialogue
Also
is
has some
worse
Lord
in
of the
this
Rings shocked level acting at the end.
Oh, God, yeah.
But
I don't even
the
know if I
incestuous
could-
realization video kind of saves it.
That's such a running meme between us that I don't even think I have the will to laugh at that part. But it is funny, yeah.
God's sake. This film is like, I don't know, because I don't hate it. I have hated it before. I don't love it, I have loved it before. I think I'm kind of settled on it's good, it's a fine end to this trilogy. It kind of, there's so many things that feel like a missed opportunity. And it's kind of like, even the fact that, like, in terms of the director, Lucas, like, couldn't really get a big name to direct it because he fell out with the Writers Guild, and he had to settle with Richard Marquand, who sadly died like 5 years after the film was released. But the whole thing just feels like a missed opportunity.
Why didn't he hire Irvin Kershner again to direct it?
I don't know. I have no idea. I feel like it's missing some of that spark that Empire had, like some of the originality. A lot of it feels kind of just like repeating the same ideas. The fact that they go to one new place, they're just like, we'll go to the Death Star again, we'll go to Tatooine again, and we'll go to one new planet.
Yeah,
it kind of feels a bit unoriginal at times.
Now, you do make a good point. I think while I was watching this, I figured out that my main problem with it was that the dialogue feels so kind of like rehashed and recycled. Like everything they say, I feel like I've heard this line mentioned before so many times in the previous Star Wars films, and it kind of just gets a bit boring after a while for me.
Yeah, I do think that I will agree that it does just sort of take the two data points that are the films before it, you know, Empire and A New Hope, and then just sort of extrapolates that line out and is like, I guess we'll do this, you know, another Death Star, and it is sort of the complaints that people have for newer films, like in this.
The fact that Gary Kurtz, who was the producer of Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back, fell out with Lucas and didn't produce this one, kind of spells the beginning of the end, because he was definitely the guy that like leveled Lucas out. He kind of like, he was his kind of bullshit proofer, and then he goes, and then this film is still good. It's still good. It's kind of the last good kind of Lucas film. But then after this, the special editions, the prequels, so it's kind of, you could tell this was kind of like the beginning of the end, and the end of the good stuff. Yeah. I mean, it's still fun. Yeah, I still like it. I still think it's a good film, but there's a lot of things that annoy me about it.
The saving grace for it is though the Darth Vader and Luke and the Emperor scenes, because they're so strong. Just the and just the conversation on down on the planet, you know, where Darth Vader's like, it's too late for me, and then they go up to the planet, and how Luke beats Darth Vader, you know. It's very emotional in that point, I'll say. Yeah, definitely one of the strongest parts of the series, in my opinion, just because it has all the weight of the past ones to, you know, finally be the conclusion to that story.
Yeah, even the scenes where Luke goes back to Dagobah, like I like that, maybe because it's just going back to Dagobah, but like all the stuff, the Jedi are actually like pretty sharp, and then Luke's like goes, and then he sees the others. He basically sees both sides. He sees like the light and the dark, and he kind of finds his own way. There's a lot of color theory as well. But like, I like the fact that he has a green lightsaber. You know, it's kind of like the middle in between the red and the blue. He's carving his own way. He's carving his own destiny.
Should have gone for a purple lightsaber.
He's no Mace Windu.
You can't.
And then the prequels just are not understanding it, being like, oh yeah, Jedi's just have green lightsabers. It's just the thing they have. Instead of the whole Luke trying to find his own way in life. You
Oh
know?
yeah, because that would have actually been the first time they'd seen a green lightsaber, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come to think of it. Yeah. Also, you can't forget the part where Obi-Wan explains his kind of loophole for not telling Luke about his father. He's like, it was right from a certain point of view.
From a certain point of view.
This film does just feel at times like it's just trying to force an ending in a way, or just like make sense of what it did in the first two, just with the
Yeah.
from a certain point of view.
But then the scenes with Luke and the Emperor are really good.
Mm-hmm.
Like the fact that he like uses his anger to beat Vader, and then he kind of like refuses to kill him, and it's just everything the Emperor does is so great. I love him. It's the one good thing about the prequels is we get to see more of Ian McDiarmid as the Emperor. Do it, especially Episode 3, which I think I said a lot when we talked about Episode 3, how much I love the Emperor. But yeah, the music's really good. Like aesthetically, the Emperor's chamber and the Royal Guard is incredible.
Yeah,
I feel like when it comes to directing the kind of the Empire stuff, the film actually like shows its hand. It's really good. It's really interesting. It follows on from what Kirsten did in Episode 5, whereas the rest of the film isn't as interesting visually, apart from Jabba's Palace, which is kind of like a prequel in itself, which I liked a lot. It's a weird film, this, because it's got so many parts to it, some of which are great, some of which are pretty bad. It's really hard to review as a whole.
Yeah.
I guess we'll have to though. For me though,
just a silence of can't really review this.
Let's just not bother even trying.
I think that might be the longest pause in media history, as we thought of the weight of trying to like compare this film to the two that came before it. You know.
I just want to tell you, I want to hear what your takeaway was from the Vader stuff.
Yeah, for the Vader stuff? Did you say?
Yeah, I guess.
I really
like
just
in general.
Like I was genuinely like that was the strongest thing, and I thought it was like I was definitely agreeing that like the film felt a bit weaker right up until the Vader stuff, and I was like, oh, this is really good, you know. But it is a bit like, okay, I was really strong. It had that almost sort of strong ending because you know it's the ending of the Empire. Yeah, and you know the Emperor and Vader, they're both dead. You get the great funeral scene, right? The soundtrack that spoils the end of the film.
It's not that bad.
Yeah,
it's the fact that we have to see prequel destinations is bad.
Yeah, that is garbage.
We set free.
Yeah, that was the true nightmare. But to be fair,
I can't believe they didn't have the orb.
I love that "We Set Free" is technically the last line uttered in Return of the Jedi.
Oh, that makes me like it less. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I will say that was really strong. But like, if I had reviewed it straight off of like watching it, I would have had that sort of Vader conclusion like right in my mind. I would have been like, alright, it's almost as good just based off of that alone. But as I've left it a couple of days, it's sort of crept in a bit like, I don't think it really holds up as much compared to where the first two broke new ground. And I do think that the new stuff it does do is all right. I don't hate the Ewoks. I like the Jabba's Palace scene, but I just don't think any of it compares to how great the first two installments were. Like, there's no setting that is as good as like Binary Suns in the first one, or Vader in that the carbonite freezing chamber. Yeah, in this film, you just saw like forest and stuff. I mean, yeah, the chamber for the Emperor is really good, like you said, and I like the red guards the Emperor has when the Emperor first appears and he's talking to middle management, and I really like Vader's line, where he says like the Emperor will not be as forgiving as I am, and just having come off Episode 5 where he just strangles two guards for no reason. That's a great setup for the Emperor, for when you first like see him in the flesh. You're like, he's not as forgiving as I am. He's an even bigger bad,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like the idea of like, I know like we've had this debate where you're like, the light and the dark, just like I wonder which one the evil one is. But like having like the Emperor be like objectively the most evil being of all time,
Yeah.
and then like essentially like Yoda on the other side, and then you realize like, oh no, he's a bit fucked up, and Luke's trying to find his own way. The fact that the bad guy Darth Vader can get redeemed at the end, I just think it's like the kind of ambiguity of it. It's a centrist film, really. I like the color theory of Luke like wearing dark, and then his moment of kind of like triumph, you know, when he's gonna defeat Vader, he kind of like a little bit of white appears. It's kind of he changes his mind.
Yeah, I do like what it symbolizes when, you know, Luke he's just bashing Darth Vader's like lightsaber, like full of that range. You know, he cuts off his arm, but then in the end he says like, no, you know, I won't.
And then
kill
he
him.
looks at his own robotic hand.
Yeah.
So you've got all this like really like interesting complex stuff, and then like cut to Ewoks. It kind of feels
Yeah.
slightly out of place. Like that final sequence isn't entirely well orchestrated, and then you've got the kind of the surprisingly anticlimactic blowing up the Death Star 2.
Yeah.
And just like to say the Death Star 2, like why why is there another Death Star?
Yeah, to be honest, I prefer Starkiller Base to the second incomplete Death Star, because it's at least that one was like, all right, we're you know doing something different. It's not just a Death Star; it's a whole planet this time, and it's gonna kill like 5 planets. This one was like, yeah, we're just doing it again, but bigger, and it's half built, but it's fully operational, so it doesn't really matter.
How is Starkiller Base massively different to the Death Star?
Just because it's like a different idea, they're not just calling it, you know, Death Star again. It's
Yeah,
just slightly
but all
different.
they did was change the name. It's just a bigger
Yeah,
thing
that's
that can
that's
go up
literally
more
It's also-
that's
a
literally
planet.
enough, Ethan, to make it more
It looks
different than what they
aesthetically
did in
doesn't.
Episode A New
This
Hope.
Star Wars, this franchise doesn't need more Death Stars. It didn't
Well,
work out
I'm
the
not
first time.
saying
They never
it's a
learned
good
from their
idea to
mistakes.
just keep having Death Stars as the plot point, even though I think, what was it, last episode I said, like, you know, this could just be rebranded to Death Stars, the film series, you know. I do think they should just move on from having just big Death Stars as plot points. That being said, Starkiller is minusculely a better idea than just having another original Death Star, you know.
Yeah,
It's slightly bigger.
minusculely I'll allow, but it's still
Yeah,
not
that's
like...
my point, Ethan. Minusculely. But yeah, should we slap a number on this boy? I think originally I was, because I was like, alright, it's not as strong as the first two in this trilogy, and so that puts it like, is it above Rogue One or not, was my big question. And that felt like a really difficult thing to reconcile in my head, because there was nothing in Rogue One that was as strong as, you know, the Vader conclusion, and that is partially on the fact that Rogue One is, you know, it's a spin-off, whereas the Vader conclusion has, of course, the weight of the past two films. That being said, I just think Rogue One is like a lot more like solidly constructed, like overall, like it feels a lot more consistent, and obviously, you know, the production values are a bit better. There's, you know, no Jedi rocks in Rogue One, and so if should I be the first to put a number on it?
Yeah, go for
All right, I will say that it is an 8 out of 10. Slightly dropped from me considering giving it a 9, like over time, like realizing it doesn't compare to the first two, but still being really strong just because of it having the luxury of including this overall really solid, like really great, you know, original trilogy. But yeah, it will be slightly below Rogue One for me in the rankings though.
Okay. Do you want me to go next?
Sure, shoot.
Because I'm pretty similar to you, except I'm one lower, so I'd give it a 7, just because, like, I don't know. I still find it fun. I still like it. Kind of this film fluctuates. I've changed my opinion on it a lot. But I've pretty much settled on the fact that it's like it's a fun time, even though it frustrates me a lot. And it's a 7. I think I'm happy with 7. I might change my mind again, but for now it's a 7. And I think it's better than Rogue One, just because I prefer the originality to kind of doing a prequel, unless a prequel is very well executed. The fact that I care more about these characters than any characters in Rogue One. Vader has an arc, so it doesn't, so...
Yeah, well, Vader also has the conclusion of an arc, though, in this film.
Yeah,
like
no, because
like,
even if you look at, like, just this film as a whole, Vader pretty much goes from, like,
fair
evil
enough.
to being redeemed.
I will allow that.
Also,
Vader is the strong part.
because I forward Jedi Rocks, I'm not counting it. If I was including the scene where Jedi Rocks happens, it might be lower than Rogue One, but it's not. It's higher. There we go.
Okay. Who wants to go next? Ethan, Jono?
Yeah, so I'll go next. It's well, yeah, it's the weakest of the originals. Feels like I don't know. It feels like it's missing quite a few of the things that made the original. I say the originals, the previous two work better. Yeah, it's sort of. You can definitely see the prequels beginning to move in like the fight between Luke and Darth Vader. There's a bit where Luke kicks Darth Vader down the stairs and he just does a flip, like falls to the bottom. And just thinking, this makes me think of the fight with Count Dooku. Just his needless forward roll as he jumps down. So, it was. I guess it is fun in parts, but more like fun to laugh at. But yes, I think though it's a 6 for me.
6. Okay, that's fair. Yeah, you're definitely right. It's a weird film. It's very odd, and we probably haven't done well in reviewing it because it's such an. It would require a bit more time, I think, to kind of digest it fully, which we don't really have. And also, we spent so long going over the first two. I feel like I kind of want this episode to be over. To Ethan. Also, Jono, in terms of your ranking, where does it fit in?
Well, it's between Rogue One and Attack of the Clones.
Ooh, interesting.
So I think I possibly would prefer watching Attack of the Clones because that's more like reliably, funnily bad.
All right, Ethan.
Yeah. So I also think that this is the weakest of the three. I think all of us can pretty much agree on that fact. Yeah, we've talked about how it's a bit of a weird film. It is quite fun. It does have a prequel feel to it, but at the same time, towards the end, I did find myself falling asleep a little bit. I kind of got quite bored, and this is a film that I meant to really like. So I'm probably going to go down a little bit. I think I think it's just the dialogue that my main problem is with. I don't mind the Ewoks. I think they're pretty cool. I just think the delivery of the dialogue there's something wrong with it, and I feel like Harrison Ford, it specifically when he has something like a smart remark he wants to say, he just doesn't deliver it. I think in the same tonal manner as he does in the original films, and I get the same thing with Luke when he has that chat with Yoda. His acting is really off point as well.
Yoda,
for me.
you can't die.
Yeah, exactly. It's just I don't even think I think the dialogue it's not even the delivery that much, but the dialogue is just kind of poorly written a lot of the time as well. It sort of reminds me a little bit of the previous two films, but just not as good, and I think it's genuinely because they've pretty much been reusing the same gist of the lines and the same thing, oh, good versus evil, oh, anger and hate, and all that, and it just gets a bit dull for me after a while, so I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10.
Where does it fit in your ranking?
It's above Rogue One. So I'll have these three films as my top ones.
Ethan, we have like the same ranking.
Yeah, I know. It's because we're on the same wavelength, you know.
Let's see what our wavelength's going to be when we return for the 4th episode of Star Wars SW Media Edition, where we review the Disney ones, the sequels as they're called. Will we both like them the same amount? Who knows?
Find out.
This is such a long podcast. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.
Master Star Wars, you can't die.